Mori Lung's violent, killing intention flashed away from his eyes. Mo Shanghua shook his head. Clear thinking, clear mind. He should not be malicious. But I can't bear what he made you do. Yin Beiqing's face was cold and heavy, and his face was full of violence. No matter whether he can do some magic tricks, he will never let him go if he dares to move the flowers. Mo Shanghua helplessly raised his hand to caress his eyes full of killing intention and sighed. Don't be impulsive. I will slowly understand this matter. During this period, you must not act rashly. Yin Beiqing's eyes were fixed, and his face was full of persistence. The flowers on the street are silent, so they look at him. After all, it was Yin Beiqing who was defeated, and the anger between his eyebrows suddenly dispersed. Just depend on you, Lord. With the first mock exam, S voice appeared, and the window was just a faint shadow. Yin Beiqing turned around with some apology and said, I still have some important things to deal with. I'll come back to see you tomorrow. What else can I do now that it's near midnight? Must be this day only to accompany her, the accumulation of things. The flower on the street should not, but nodded gently at the moment. It hurt me a little. You should be careful. You don't have to come and see me when things are finished. She has a soft voice that doesn't look like her at all. Yin Beiqing gently lifted her thin lip, bent over her ruddy lip and gave her a kiss, then got up and left. Mo Shanghua Lung for a while, immediately gently hook up lips, a smile. Yin Moli has never contacted Lu Qianqian since the accident. She is full of worries and is afraid that she will become a useless child. Until Yin Moli contacted her again. As usual, with the help of the Dark Guard, she left Liufu quietly. All this is because she has never trained her internal skills in order not to be noticed. What she knows is only some simple three-legged kung fu. In the alley where the common people live, they stop at an ordinary house. Yin Moli did not wait for him alone, but discussed affairs with others in the hospital. From Lu Qianqian's point of view, we can see that, opposite Yin Moli, he is a man in white. At a glance, she dropped her head and stopped looking. That's the rule here. The Yin Mo Li Mao color in the house is gloomy and stares at the Ning No to No opposite. This matter is how to return a responsibility after all. Why can that several women's fates all be so coincident? Contract Mother Empress character mutual coup? Rather familiar with the long-bodied jade. Face habitually a little smile. I have told your highness, I don't know much about this kind of. If you say celestial wonders, I'm more proficient. Yin Moli's face completely sank down, and his whole face was covered with clouds. I hold you in the palace. Is that what I want you to say? Rather no, as if not affected by his mood in general. Light way. Even without you, I want to smoothly into the palace is also easy. At the beginning, Yin Imoli gave up his face to invite him. He just went down the slope. Yin Imoli, a choke, strong from swallow this tone, slightly slowed down the voice. Then you can have what way out. The queen is his mother. With the queen in one day, you will get more help. Without the queen, although the queen's mother's family will still help, many benefits will be lost. In the past 2 days, the queen's mother's family is also working in the court hall, trying to help the queen out of difficulties, but the effect is very little. Although Emperor Baoron was honest in politics, he believed in this aspect. Forgive me for my incompetence. Ning knew that his face remained unchanged, and he left without a smile. His white clothes made his face more elegant. Yin Moli, a handsome face, thoroughly sink down, foot muscle slightly twist spasm. After a long time, he calmed down his anger and said, "Come in." Lu Qianqian, just outside, did not hear the movement inside. Inhaled, just dropped his head to go in line arched hands ceremony. Your Highness. Her heart was both uneasy and a bit of hidden shyness. Yin Mo Li's gloomy face has not yet completely faded. Now he sees Lu Qianqian and doesn't have a good face. He orders coldly, "The Empress Mother has chosen another marriage for our palace. Now you have been ill for a period of time in the palace. After some time, when the wind is over, our palace will help you choose another marriage. Just listen to me and keep an eye on the person you want to marry. However, in just a few days, her reputation in the imperial city had gone from bad to worse. Naturally, few families would like to marry such a notorious woman. And Lu Qian thought, even if others in Hao, Yin Imoli will keep his promise, marry her wife. Unexpectedly, it was such a thunderbolt. Her eyes were so sour that tears flowed down her cheeks. She was so sad and shocked that there was nothing to say. Your Highness, I. Lu Qianqian clenched her lips, and her pink lips were all pale. You promised me that you would marry me sooner or later, I. Before he finished, he was forced to live by Yin Mo's eyes, and his heart seemed to split into thousands of pieces. Yin Moli didn't feel half guilty because she was sad and crying. His eyes were cold, and now he was a little unhappy and impatient. Shut up. Lu Qianqian quickly raised his hand to wipe the tears on his face, but now the tears are like opening the gate. Not only can't wipe clean, but more and more. Yin Moli has completely lost patience, voice cold without a trace of temperature. You are just a chess piece of our palace. Really expect to marry me. Change your humble identity. Lu Qianqian, like a lightning strike, was completely stiff in the same place, and his face was completely faded. Tears silently across the corner of the eye. Hot temperature, such as his merciless words in general, hard into her heart. It turned out that she was so unbearable in his eyes that she didn't even have the qualification to accompany him. I'm afraid that no matter how she changes her face, what stays in his heart is always the humble and pitiful look when she was just brought back. There is no better way. Yin Moli is most tired of women crying. See, a pair of sword eyebrows are twisted in a Sichuan word. Deep can kill flies. Send her back to the Prime Minister. The voice, full of impatience, sounded, like the trial of hell, completely determined Lu Qianqian's future destiny. Originally, Yin Moli did not want to discuss with Lu Qianqian. A piece of chess, naturally, can only be manipulated. The wedding date of His Royal Highness King Ling is set on the 6th day of next month. The other princes have also been set, and the 13 princes have been set after next spring. Qinya, as usual with Mo Shanghua, admitted recently received news. Mo Shanghua was not surprised at Yin Mo's marriage. He was only slightly surprised when he mentioned Yin Sichuan's marriage. It's not. Qinya nodded and sighed in her heart. She could not help sighing. I'm looking at such a good man as the 13th prince. Now I'm going to get a wife. I don't know what kind of woman is worthy of him. The flowers on the street were silent for a moment. It's not like Qinya's regret for Yin Sichuan, nor other emotions. On the contrary, her first reaction was that it was Yin Beiqing's work. At the last banquet, Yin Sichuan said something for her. This guy was serious and tight on the surface. He didn't look jealous and resentful. It turned out that he was sour and bubbling. However, Yin Sichuan's body is just weak, which is related to his life, so he must not be willing to do so. What's the reaction of Prince 13? Mo Shanghua thought for a while, still asked. Qinya shook her head and said, the Empress herself gives the Phoenix order to get married. Even if the 13 princes don't want to, I'm afraid they have nothing to do. Yes, this is the kingdom of God where the imperial power is supreme. Even the prince has no right to resist. Mo Shanghua sighs for Yin Sichuan's fate in her heart, and then forgets the matter for the time being. Is Lu Xinka in the mansion? Mo Shanghua suddenly thought of this place and immediately asked, isn't Dr. Lu in Yuzhou? How can you come to our mansion? Qinya's face was blank, and she didn't know anything about it. I forgot that I had never told you about it. Mo Shanghua raised her hand and pressed her temple. She felt annoyed on her face. Just say, outside already entered a servant girl to report, holding an acupuncture bag on the hand. Report back to the princess. There is a young man outside the door who claims to be from the Yuzhou Palace. He has been ordered to wait in the palace and says that you will know when you see this. Qinya took the acupuncture bag and handed it to Mo Shanghua. She was surprised. The princess just said, why did she really come? Mo Shanghua smiles and doesn't give any explanation. She just looks at the acupuncture bag and understands. Please go to Pian Hall and ask Aunt Zhang to clean up a secluded yard. The maid in charge of the message answered and went down. Since Aunt Zhang was beaten by Immo Shanghua last time, she had been ill for several days. She came back to work these 2 days. However, she stood far away and didn't dare to listen and watch. She was honest and peaceful. Now, after listening to Immo Shanghua's instructions, the old fault has been made again. She could have ordered others to clean it. In order to avoid standing here and looking around, she offended Immo Shanghua and went down in person. Even so, she couldn't help counting up. Now she, unstable for a while, wait for Immo Shanghua to relax vigilance. She is not late in action. Lu Zheng is still like the past, and he likes the elegant and simple long shirt. Handsome face a bit tired, a pair of dusty state. Imperial Doctor Lu has been working hard for days. Qinya is pouring tea for him. Immo Shanghua's eyes swept Lu Zheng's tired face, slightly polite. The princess is serious. Lu Zheng chuckled at the corner of his lip, took the water Qinya had just poured, and drank half a cup in one breath. He was tired and thirsty. Qinya is very discerning to see, quickly continued. By the way, Lu Zheng's acupuncture bag back to him. Lu Zheng Chao, Qinya chuckled, and said nothing. Qinya also gave him a smile, then returned to Immo Shanghua. Immo Shanghua took a look at the maids who stood outside the house. If she had a point, she said, "Is Lu Yui going well this time?" Lu Jingyan looked at the nose and said with a smile, "Everything goes well. I heard that many caravans of Yuegua have come to the Imperial City to do business recently. I haven't seen anything new in the Moon Kingdom, but I'm curious." Lu Zheng nodded with a smile. Although he was tired, he still cheered up and said, "The State of the Moon is next to Yuzhou. On the way, there are many caravans of the State of the Moon, including the Emperor's merchant Wu family. We can see that our country is strong and prosperous." Immo Shanghua nodded slightly, with a light smile on her face. "I think there will be many exotic new things in the market in a few days. At that time, we will all go to the streets to have a look." Qinya took over the conversation at the right time, and Ying said with a smile, "Although there are many gadgets in Yuzhou, when the princess was in Yuzhou, she was busy with the inner house all day, so she couldn't get away. Now she has time to have a good look." Immo Shanghua Mao Guang glanced slightly at the direction of the door and turned to say, "Lu Yui has been on the road for many days. It must have been hard. Go to have a rest first." After a pause, she suddenly said, "When the Imperial Doctor Lu has a good rest, don't you go and show it to the South Imperial concubine? She's not beautiful these days. She must be a bit acclimatized. She needs to see Dr. Lu carefully. Lu Yui Lian eyes should be." Qinya sent him to the courtyard arranged by Immo Shanghua to have a rest. As for why we should go to Nanhe instead of Yanbei, for one thing, Yan Beichen was busy and Huizi was not in the mansion. For another thing, Nanhe showed his mind. Now they are all grasshoppers on the same rope, and she is willing to abandon the past and cooperate fully to the end. As for Lu Qian, the flowers on the street are not urgent. Lu Qianqian, now afraid, is only no sad. Now she's not good for the next step. About to wait until the eve of Yanbei's city wedding. Immo Shanghua just sent Lu Zheng away. Lin Xiangyin came with a smile and prepared a bunch of gifts. "Princess, Miss Lin is waiting in the side hall now. The pirates have sent many gifts to thank you." I can't hide the smile on that face at all. Qinya's face is full of excitement and joy, but there is no word for flowers on the street. For a long time, she just got up to the bedside with a light complexion. Her voice was cold and could not distinguish between joy and anger. She said that I was unwell and could not see the guests. "Princess, Miss Lin has come to see you specially. Why do you want to avoid it?" Qin Yatin was surprised. But this time, before she could explain, she had already figured out the reason, and her face was swept away. "Does the princess feel that her Royal Highness Ling is not a good match?" Immo Shanghua nodded slightly. Her eyes were deep, and she couldn't see any emotion. "I also indirectly pushed her into the abyss. If it had been in the past, she would not have been moved. But now, her cold heart seems to be melted down by Yanbei City. When she encounters such things, she will be moved. This era determines a woman's life. Except for family background is the husband. Yin Mo is ruthless and ruthless. In order to achieve his goal, he will do whatever he can. I'm afraid it's hard to be sincere to a woman. Chinya was also silent. After a while, she sighed and said, I'm going to report back to Miss Lin. She wanted to comfort, but suddenly thought that Mo Shanghua had always been strong. I'm afraid she didn't need her comfort, so she didn't say much. Mo Shanghua said, well, after thinking about it, he said, I want to take a nap. You should pay attention to the South Crane and ask if Dr. Liu needs any herbs. You should prepare them in the house first. With that, he took off his shoes and socks, turned and collapsed, and lay on the bed with his eyes closed. She was a little tired when she didn't do anything today. Qin Yafu saluted and then turned to go out. At that time, Lin Xiangyin was sitting in a chair waiting. She didn't have the slightest impatience on her face. On the contrary, she had a happy look between her eyebrows. Even if she had no expression on her face, she could let out a little bit. Together with the maid behind her, she seemed to be infected with the same smile. Chinya looked at the two happy faces and tried to squeeze out a smile. She came forward to salute. My maid congratulated Miss Lin, but Miss Lin was very happy. It's a pity that our princess didn't feel well. She just went to bed and couldn't come to congratulate her in person. If it were normal, Lin Xiangyin would be dissatisfied with her freshman, but she didn't care about anything today. Instead, she expressed some concern. How can Sister Imo feel ill? Chinya's eyes and nose were concerned, and she lied casually. It rained the day before yesterday, but the princess was caught in the rain accidentally, a little typhoid. I'll ask someone to send some tonic some other day. You can keep these things for your princess first. Lin Xiangyin stood up with a little regret on her face. I thought that after I got married, I would have a sister-in-law relationship with my sister-in-law. It's better to get along with her a lot, but I didn't expect to be so clever. Of course, this is not for Chinya, but I want to tell Mo Shanghua through her mouth. Chinya followed Mo Shanghua for nearly a year, and her mind became more and more vivid. She wrote it down secretly and said with a smile, Miss, I'm sure I'll tell the princess about my hard work. Lin Xiangyin nodded slightly, asked people to put down the gift, then got up and went out. Mo Shanghua wakes up with a dark complexion. Seeing that she woke up, Chinya ordered someone to pass the meal. She stood up and said, Dr. Liu, the slave girl has gone to ask. Dr. Liu said he doesn't need it for the time being. The Lord has prepared it for him. After a pause, her smart eyes bent up and said with a smile, It's the Southern Imperial concubine who sent a message to say thank you to the princess. She has no hatred for the past, and she can forget the past even if she forgets the princess. Nanha is always arrogant, so he can't say it face to face, so he just takes this opportunity to let his maid say it. For one thing, Mo Shanghua's actions will make Nanhe gain trust in front of Yin Beiqing. For another thing, her two close friends are all Yin Beiqing's people, and her every move will be introduced into Yin Beiqing's ears, which is the same as the above. After all, she is the person who works under Yin Beiqing. She can't always be trapped in the inner house, and she will never be willing to be trapped in the inner house. I think that after these days, Yin Beiqing will put down her bad habit and use it for her again. Mo Shanghua feels a little relieved in her heart. In this way, it is no longer a bad thing for her or Yin Beiqing. That's good. Mo Shanghua nodded slightly, dressed, and went to the dining room with Chinya. The footstep just stepped down, but she seemed to suddenly think of something in general. The footstep stopped a meal. A little pondered, Mo Shanghua still asked, How does Miss Lin look? The princess used to be hard-spoken and didn't want to see for herself. Now, she comes to ask again, which shows that she's really cold and soft-hearted. Chinya looked at the flowers in the street with some exclamations and said, Don't worry, Miss Lin is in a good mood now. I'm getting worse. The flowers on the street just take back their eyes and press down the dark color, which is fleeting in their eyes. Chinya spits out her tongue, which is exquisite. Her cheeks are more delicate and playful. Chinya Gang was only 16 years old when he bought it, but now he is 17 years old, and he has matured a lot, but his playful temperament has not changed. However, in the end is a lot of mature, such as the flour-used meal, then asked, the princess just sleep can also be stable. She had a delicate mind and knew that she seldom slept at that time. Mo Shanghua's eyes flashed lightly, nodded cleanly, got up and stretched slightly, and said with a smile, I slept well today, and now I'm still in good spirits. In fact, she didn't sleep soundly. As two peas, she had the same dream again, and the dream was chaotic, except for a man's vague voice. However, she didn't want to let Qinya worry. Qinya did not doubt the words of Mo Shanghua. She seemed to think of something. Her eyes lit up, and she said with a smile, Princess, since you are in such a good spirit, why don't we go out to the night market together? It's said that the night market in the imperial city is very busy. We've been to the imperial city for more than a month, and we haven't been out yet. Lu Chanqian and Yin Moli were badly hurt, and they turned enemies into friends with Nan He. So Mo Shanghua's mood was not so bad. Smell speech, then smiled to nod ahead. You go to change clothes first? I also change dress. We go together. Qin Yatin was excited when he answered in a loud voice and walked briskly. Mo Shanghua was just a casual response. Seeing Qinya's appearance, she seems to be infected, and her mood is getting better. The night market in the imperial city was no more lively than that in Yuzhou. It was almost as lively as the day, and even had a tendency to surpass the day. Lanterns light up at the gates of shops on both sides of the street, and various exquisite and beautiful lanterns are hung in front of vendor stalls on the street. They're not only used for lighting, but also very pleasing to the eye. Apart from some special products of the imperial city, there are also many small items of various countries. Apart from the Moon Country, there are all kinds of small items of other countries. Needless to say, Qinya is almost dazzled by the flowers on the street. Originally because of the dream of a little bit of gloomy mood also turned sunny in an instant. Her ruddy lips gently hook, with a smile in front of the jump, walked to see Qinya behind. Qinya's Huantao has long forgotten the difference between master and servant. He holds two small toys and looks at the flowers on the street. Mo Shanghua naturally won't refuse. She takes the silver and lets her buy it. Even she did not hold back and stopped in front of Jade Shop, whose door was still open. Qinya saw that Mo Shanghua, who had never been interested in anything, stopped walking. She quickly followed him. Her joy was swept away, and she followed Mo Shanghua step by step. Her big and smart eyes were full of curiosity. If she's right, most of the people who come in and out of this Jade Shop are women with luxurious clothes, followed by two maidservants or slim women with hats. I think it must be something for men or extremely attractive to women. What Qinya expected was really good. It was a shop specializing in men's wearing jade pendants, but there were few other jade ornaments. Mo Shanghua was Ren Taishan's temperament, but he was still in front of him. Now he entered the shop, but his eyes couldn't control wandering on a group of exquisite jade pendants. Qinya followed Mo Shanghua and couldn't help laughing and joking. The princess used to be not interested in these things. How can she not even move her eyes today? The flower on the street naturally won't say it directly. It's suddenly in my heart that I never saw Yin Beicheng wearing a jade pendant around his waist. I want to choose one for him. She would never say such a thing. As a result, Mo Shanghua's face did not change. She picked up a snow-white jade pendant, which was finely carved into a Kirin pattern, and said, I've always been very interested. Xiao Er, who could see the look of her eyes, immediately came over and looked up and down at the street. He immediately put on a smile. This young lady's eyes are really excellent. This jade pendant is the treasure of our shop. Qinya curled her lips and felt bored. She was annoyed by the constant words of the second child, so she went to the other side of the ordinary jade pendant where the price was lower. Small tooth throw and gushing, mouth foam flying boast, the flower thin eyebrow has frowned up, eyebrows between slightly impatient. I'll take it. She really didn't want to hear from Little Two. She took out the money bag from her body and patted it on the table. Little Two didn't expect that Mo Shanghua was so happy that he didn't need to wear his lips. He was surprised. Before I had time to make a few flatteries, the stranger took a cool look and said, "Just say the price. If I say more, I won't want it." Small Tu Shan Shan's mouth, even dare not say again, behind the Natu. Emo Shanhua directly takes out 200 Liang silver tickets from her purse, turns around and leaves, ignoring the surprise of the little two behind. He was about to turn around to call Chinya, but there was a sound of something breaking behind him. Then there was a woman's voice suddenly raised, and two young women's voice of dispute. It seems that the girl in the shop broke the jade pendant, but she got on with the guests and made a lot of noise. Emo Shanghua has no interest in it. She wanted to turn around and leave, but she heard a familiar woman's voice. Although she was a little hoarse, she suddenly recognized that it was Lu Qianqian. Turning around, he saw a young woman in front of him, followed by two maids in royal clothes. Standing in the counter was a woman in her 30s and 40s. She was standing with her waist crossed at the moment, and her mouth was foaming. She said angrily, "Don't think that you are the daughter of any family who can slander me like this. I tell you that I have seen more dignitaries than you have eaten rice. You can't scare me." The woman said angrily, "I can see clearly that this jade pendant was broken by you. Don't come up with this door if you don't accompany me today." The young woman stood with her back to the flower on the street. She couldn't see her face. She said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Don't deceive people too much. If you really annoy me, I want your whole shop to disappear in the imperial city." The maidservants behind her are more and more powerful. You're just a shop assistant. You have no right to talk to our young lady and ask your shopkeeper to come out. It's shameless that a half-aged Sun Yang has come out to show herself. Damn hoof, I won't tear your mouth. The woman was so popular that she would hit someone when she rolled up her sleeve. Seeing more and more movement, Chinya is also attracted to come and watch the excitement together. The little two, who had just called the flower in the street, came forward and stopped the woman in a hurry. "Oh, I have to hurry up and keep my voice down. Today, the master came to the shop to have a look. I don't know if he's gone yet." Seeing this, Chinya's eyes became brighter and brighter. She said in a low voice, "Princess, let's go and have a look at the excitement." One side does not wait for the flower to respond, then pulls her forward. Two people just leaned forward a few. The voice of a middle-aged man rang. "What's the noise?" Looking in the direction of the sound, you can see a man about 30 years old coming out of the room behind the counter with an angry face, followed by a man about the same age, but obviously more rich and full of satin. He was recognized by the flowers on the street, and he whispered in his heart, "Wu-ru." At the beginning of Chinya, he only watched the excitement, but didn't recognize it. When he looked past the people in front of him, it was too late. Peanuts on the street are really bright and have outstanding temperament. Even if they stand in the last place, they are particularly eye-catching. Naturally, Wu-ru soon noticed her, and her face suddenly sank. "What's wrong with this? I blew Princess you over." Wu-ru gave a cold hum and said very displeased. The flower on the street also had a look, but after a moment, he adjusted his face and said faintly, "I didn't expect that this is Master Wu's shop." Familiar with the unforgettable voice suddenly sounded, and finally attracted Lu Qianqian's attention. She also turned around. Unfortunately, today she took a veil to cover her haggard face. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her eyes were full of red blood. The beauty of the past was not seen at all. On the other hand, although the flowers on the street have trouble occasionally these 2 days, they are very energetic. Their complexion is ruddy, their red lips are not red, and their skin is especially white and tender. It seems that they can squeeze out water. Lu Qian was jealous and resentful, and his body trembled slightly. Unfortunately, Emo Shanghua just glanced at her lightly, and there was a little sneer in her eyes. Then she crossed her eyes and fell on Wu-ru again. "It's a guest. Since Master Wu is not welcome, I won't disturb you," said, turning to go. Wu-ru's face was colder. He brushed his sleeve and turned his back. "I'm not far away." The color of flowers on the street doesn't change at all. They hold Chinya, who wants to make a theory. They leave the shop together without looking back. Lu Qianqian watched the flower leave, hate the blood, the body shaking more and more severe. "What's the matter, miss?" When one of the maidservants saw her like this, she quickly asked, "Well, I'm afraid I don't want to pretend to be ill, do I?" The disgusting woman's voice began to ring again. Seeing this, a maid is about to open her mouth, but Lu Qianqian suddenly raises her hand and grabs her arm. She closed her eyes and exhaled a deep breath. The shaking of her body gradually subsided. "Mr. Wu? But the Emperor of the Moon, the merchant Wu family?" Lu Qianqian turns around. The red blood in her eyes has not faded, but the haggard face under the veil has already hung her warm smile. Wu Ru eased his face and nodded slightly. "I'm not talented. I'm a master of Wu family." Lu Qian's smile, eyes slowly gush out of a touch of calculation and a bit of resentment. If not, how could she be forced to play a fool and ruin her reputation? How could she be so sad that she annoyed Liu Bohan? And now even her entourage has changed into two maidservants to watch her. I'm just afraid that she's looking for short-sightedness and that she's also being monitored. She suffered a few days, muddled for a few days, finally figured out, accepted the fate of the arrangement, willing to be Yin Moli's chess piece. I've come to buy a jade pendant to please Liu Bohan again. At least she can live better with him. But why do you want to let her meet the bright flowers in the most embarrassing time? It's like stepping on her pride that she's been thrown to the ground. She will never let go of the flowers. Wait and see. No one can live a good life. Out of the shop, Imo Shanghua just released Qinya and slowed down to walk towards the direction of the palace. Qinya followed with a puzzled face. "Princess, that Wuru is so rude. How can you pull your maidservant to leave? It's not like your old style at all." Imo Shanghua's steps slowed down, with a slightly dignified color on her face. "Although that young lady has a veil, I can still recognize her as Lu Qianqian." Qinya's eyes were full of surprise. She recalled the woman's face carefully and sighed. "Miss Lu has become like this." Haggard to the young cover, do not say. But even their gentle and kind image also ignored. Imo Shanghua doesn't pay attention to Qinya. Thinking of Lu Qianqian and Wu Cheng in the shop, she has sounded the alarm in her heart. Although Lu Qianqian and Wu Ru did not have any verbal communication just now, they both resented her the same way. Since they got together, it was hard to ensure that they would not go wrong. Think of here, Imo Shanghua can't help but speed up the pace, just want to go back to the house quickly, and then make plans. Qinya sees that Imo Shanghua has something on her mind, and she is embarrassed to ask more, so as not to disturb Imo Shanghua's mind. She just follows her. Back in the house, she went into the bedroom alone with a candlestick. As soon as she put down the candlestick, a warm and generous body leaned over, and a strong male hormone swept along. Imo Shanghua leans in Yin Beiqing's arms and closes her eyes slightly. "How come you have more recently than you did a few days ago?" Since he fainted that day, Yin Beiqing has come to her from time to time, except that he came back too late, afraid of making Imo Shanghua sleep. As long as she was awake, he was there. Yin Beiqing put his chin on the next socket of the flower on the street, and the whole person stuck to her. "I can't rest assured of you." After a pause, he naturally explained, "I'm also gradually changing the way people see me, starting with the princess." Imo Shanghua turned around, took out a white jade pendant, and handed it to him. "Thank you for your care. This is my gift." The Kirin jade pendant is made of excellent white jade. It lies quietly in the palm of Yin Beiqing's hand, with bright red tassels under it, which is more exquisite. "Did you choose one for me?" Yin Beiqing holds the jade pendant tightly in the palm of his hand. His eyes are especially focused on the flowers on the street. A pair of secluded pupils are shining against the candle fire. Imo Shanghua's ruddy lips gently pursed, and her cheeks, slightly red, looked away. Yin Beiqing's face was filled with joy. His eyes on the jade pendant seemed to be looking at rare treasures. He tied it carefully around his waist. Imo's eyes are really unique. This pendant is really unique. His lips are almost to the root of the ear, curved eyebrows looking at the flowers on the street. Imo Shanghua also can't help but chuckle. Just because meet Lu Qianqian and born unhappy swept away. It was an ordinary jade pendant that made him happy as a child. Yin Beiqing suddenly bowed his head, holding the cheek of Immerse Shanghua in his hands, and kissing her forehead with low eyes. He laughed contentedly. Although he was used to Yin Beiqing's frequent intimacy, Immerse Shanghua blushed a little and pushed him aside. Yin North City, but sent shameless of gather together to come over, intentionally tease away. Immerse, son, but shy again. Be serious. After the flower on the street to hide, busy to open the topic. By the way, I have something you need to help. As soon as she mentioned it, her face became serious, and there was no smile on her face. Yin Beiqing saw the flower face, dignified appearance. Also dare not neglect, gathered smile. Just say it. Here's the thing. Immerse Shanghua takes the initiative to get closer to Lu Qianqian, and then lowers his voice and whispers in his ear. Yin Beiqing nodded slightly, and his face became more dignified. I know. Don't worry. I'll do it by hand. Immerse Shanghua just slightly relaxed and said in a soft voice, Thank you very much. Don't talk to me like that again. Yin Beiqing pinched Immerse Shanghua's soft palm and deliberately lowered his face to warn him. The flowers on the street seem to have no waves, but they are as sweet as honey. By the way, I already know about Lu Zhang. It's Nanha who came to talk to me in person. Everything that should be arranged has been arranged. You can have a good rest these days. Yin Beiqing's face was calm. Then Wu sat down beside the bed and pulled the flowers into his arms, smelling the light body fragrance at the end of his nose and sighing with satisfaction. The princess is so tolerant. I'm really moved. It's a blessing for me to have you. Immerse Shanghua is always eloquent in the face of hostile people. Only when she is faced with Yin Beiqing's soft words, she often doesn't know what to do. After a little thought, she said solemnly, I'm so smart and beautiful. It's time for you to climb up. She couldn't help laughing. Yin Beiqing very cooperative smile nod, make a pair of flattered appearance. Yes, our villain's shameless, mischievous, if not a moer, how willing to marry me. Immerse Shanghua immediately laughed and twisted him with a smile. Yin Beiqing half not angry, and holding Immerse Shanghua, joking for a moment, and looked at her arm wound, helped her change medicine, just hugged her to sleep. What Yin Beiqing said really counts. In the next few days, the flowers on the street are very leisurely. Lu is doing a lot of things in the government, and no one comes to visit her. Therefore, she is very idle. However, Yanbei City is not so relaxed. The Empress Dowager opened her mouth to keep him in the imperial city for another 2 months. Baorong Emperor didn't say it, but he was very dissatisfied with Tai Hui's private decision, and even more dissatisfied with Yin Beiqing, who was not happy. Yin Beiqing seemed to have nothing to do on weekdays, so he simply made a speech in person and asked Yin Beiqing to take a job in the army headquarters for a while. The Secretary of the Ministry of War was secretly instructed by Emperor Baorong, so he sent many things to Yin Beiqing. If it's just these things, it's hard for Yin Beiqing to have another identity. As a national teacher, you can't always show up. You have to go to the palace to show up once every 3 or 5 days. Even in the imperial court, the identity of his national teacher is also qualified. However, Baorong Emperor spared him from going to court, and he was able to enjoy a lot of leisure. But now it's different. Ning knows that he's still in the palace. He has to raise his spirits and protect Ning knows at any time. In this way, it is the so-called brothel, and the imperial concubine's place in the south can't go anymore. She is busy all day and can't come back until late at night. Sometimes had to wait for 2 days in the national teacher's house. And in the middle of the palace, Missouri Ling was temporarily impersonated and returned to the study alone. Although Immerse Shanghua has been idle these days, she is still dreaming all night. I never dreamed of my previous dream again. Instead, I began to dream about the situation of my previous life in the 21st century again and again. Although she is excellent in art, she still has nothing to do with such things. After thinking about it for a long time, she can't figure it out. It's simply the reason why she always thinks about it. However, before long, something happened again. Lu Wang, the eunuch next to Emperor Barong in the palace, came to announce the decree in person and ordered Imo Shanghua to come to the palace immediately. Imo Shanghua felt a little awe in her heart, and then she got up and went into the palace. Lu Wang is worthy of being served by the imperial court. On the way, Qinya inquired about the front and side several times, but he didn't say a word. He was so tired of asking that he simply ignored it. Qinya was rather discouraged. She couldn't help pulling the corner of the flower and whispered, "Princess, my servant heart is very strong. I always feel that things are not so simple." Imo Shanghua gave her a reassuring look, pretending to be relaxed. "Qinya, you have been with me for a long time, and now you still don't believe me?" Calm and confident appearance instantly infected Qinya. She's also at ease some, honest with the flowers in the street behind. No more words. Luwen glanced back at the flower on the street with a calm look. He could not help sighing in his heart that Princess Yu was a wonderful person. If there is no previous thing, and the family is innocent, it must be possible to marry His Royal Highness Ling Wang as a concubine. When Imo Shanghua entered the hall, he happened to see Emperor Baorong throwing a memorial book at the foot of Yin Beicheng with an angry look on his face, and scolded, "Did you stop this memorial book? Look, it's clear what your princess did in Yuzhou, and you're helping her hide it." Yin Beicheng knelt on the ground. Smelling speech picked up the memorial, opened it, and looked at it. He pursed his lips tightly and didn't speak for a long time. Seeing this, the flowers on the street did not wait for Lu Wang to come forward to report. They went forward and saluted Yin Beicheng. "My son, Yu's concubine, Mo's family, see my father and emperor." The cold voice suddenly rang out and drew Baorong Emperor's eyes. When he saw the face of Imo Shanghua, he gave a sneer again, and his face was even worse. "It was right that I married you to King Yu, and you two were made for each other. In this case, it will not be a compliment." Imo Shanghua knelt down with her skirt and said, "I don't know where the mistake is. What's wrong?" Baorong Emperor's face was dark, and he scolded mercilessly. "The Emperor of the Moon has delivered the paper to Jing Zhouyin. Don't you admit it? My face, the face of the whole royal family, have been lost by you. Whether Lu Bohin or the Emperor, the men of this era are all the same hypocrisy, and their faces are more important than their lives. Just like Lu Qianqian, once his reputation is ruined, Lu Bohin, who is still guilty of her and wants to make up for it, immediately rebukes and discipline him severely." Imo Shanghua sneered in her heart, but she looked at Yin Beicheng. Yin Beicheng hands the memorial to Imo Shanghua. The memorial clearly describes her previous grudges with Wu Cheng. However, most of them are suspected of confusing right and wrong. Even Wu Cheng's death is regarded as a stranger's accumulation of revenge. Not only that, but also after she came to Yuzhou, she wrote all kinds of criticisms and discussions about her in the city. More importantly, the memorial was written by an official in Yuzhou. Its credibility is greatly improved. Baorong Emperor sat on the dragon chair and looked at them with a dark face. He said in a cold voice, "If it wasn't for the master of the Wu family who went to Jing Zhouyin to put in a paper, Jing Zhouyin saw that he couldn't handle it, so he made a fold. The fold just came up when your husband and wife were not in Yuzhou. I'm still in the dark today." "Father, calm down." Yin Moli, who had been watching the play for a long time, opened his mouth and looked worried. What's behind the memorial is just a rumor spread by most people in the city, and it can't be used as a matter of conviction. Emperor Baorong said in a cold voice, "Yuzhou is far away. There is no evidence for the time being. I don't care about this. Your husband and wife had better explain this matter to me first." On the surface, although he didn't care about the rumors, his eyes at the flowers on the street were more and more unhappy, especially her calm appearance, which made him more angry. Before Yin Beicheng had time to speak, Imo Shanghua raised her face slightly and said, "My son is wronged. Naturally, I don't want to bear this charge. I hope my father will allow me to confront the accuser face to face with me." "Confrontation?" Baorong Emperor sneered. "That person has already submitted the certification to the case of Jing Zhouyin. What else can you sophistry?" Yin Mo Li Mao light secretly swept over Yin Beicheng, who was kneeling on the ground, laughing in his heart. Yin Beicheng looked at him clearly, but pretended not to know. He said in a loud voice, "It's very easy to frame a person. If someone sees the second emperor brother as a thorn in the flesh, I can kill someone and throw them into his house at will. I'll buy 2 servant girls with a lot of money and ask them to do what I say. It's very simple." Yin Mo's face suddenly showed a bit of strange color, and he didn't open his mouth. After a while, he began to speak speciously. "I didn't expect that Brother Huang's tongue was so clever." Yin Beicheng raised his eyes and looked at him. He didn't have a clear look in his eyes. "I'm not smart, but I don't want to talk about things. It doesn't mean I'm stupid." Baorong Emperor, who had been very angry, was silent when he heard Yin Beicheng's words, and his eyes fell on Yin Beicheng. These days, Yin Beicheng did occasionally show some extraordinary opinions in the court hall, and the Minister of War also told him in private. Although Yin Beicheng had a ridiculous reputation in the past, he was also a very intelligent person. Baorong Emperor's eyes fell on his other half's white and handsome cheek. It seemed that he could see Yin Beicheng's mother's face when she was young. Once upon a time, Yin Beicheng's biological mother was very beautiful. Even in the whole harem, there was no one who could compare with him. In addition to making use of it, he also had pity in his heart. If it had not been for the words of the national master of that day, if it had not been for the thought that what she gave birth to was evil and would affect the national destiny, he would not have been so cruel. He was very attached to such a beautiful and affectionate woman. "Please allow your father's son and minister to accompany the princess out of the palace to confront Beijing Zhaoyin and the so-called Bitter Lord." Yin Beicheng's resolute voice came again and pulled Baorong Emperor back from his memory. He softened a little and said, "This matter is well known now, and I can't force it down. You can go out of the palace now and deal with it. If you can't prove it for yourself, I will ask for a crime according to the national law." The flowers in the street in Yinbei City should be gathered together. Lier, Emperor Baorong, turned his head and looked at Yin Moli, who was beside him. "You go together and watch for me. You can't make Jing Zhaoyin do favoritism." Yin Mo nodded, and his eyes quickly crossed a dark color. Mo Shanghua and Yin Beicheng looked at each other and frowned. "I think the second emperor brother's good news is coming. He's in a good mood recently. He's got to get involved in everything." Yinbei City, Yin Moli walked side by side. Yinbei City suddenly opened his mouth. The flower on the street heard the words and said coldly, "If you have a mother, you will chant sutras and pray for the second emperor's brother all day long." Naturally, the second emperor's brother is very happy. Both husband and wife look at me and satirize Yin Moli both inside and outside the words. This is what they say. That's it. Yin Mo Li's blue veins on his forehead jumped, and Sheng Sheng held back his sullen breath in his chest. He didn't smile back. How did the emperor's younger brother feel at ease when he was in Yuzhou before, but now he is busy day by day in the imperial city? Naturally, I feel inferior to him as an elder brother. The implication is that Yin Beicheng used to be a loose dandy, but now all kinds of things are just acting. Yin Beicheng's face again hung up a signboard-like smile and said, "I heard that the emperor asked his father for enfeoffment before, but his father refused. Yinbei City is also a vassal with fiefdoms, but Yin Moli has the name of a vassal without fiefdoms." Yin Moli's face was slightly convulsed, and he had nothing to say for a moment. Mo Shanghua also added, "Why don't we wait until we solve this problem and take the opportunity to offer advice to our father and emperor to help him please seal it?" Yin Beicheng nodded with a smile and praised. "The princess is really kind and thinks of others everywhere." This brazen appearance really made Yin Mo angry. Why didn't he find the couple so shameless before? Not only trample on people's pain, but also follow the husband and wife. Both husband and wife are extremely hateful. Around is Yin Mo Li's self-control ability again good. At the moment also was angry cold complexion. A handsome face is full of gloomy, speechless fast walk. Baorong Emperor himself gave an oral instruction, and 2 other princes were in charge. Of course, Jing Zhaoyin did not dare to neglect him, so he came out early to meet him and summoned Wu Ru to come and confront him. This matter has obviously caused a great disturbance in the imperial city. At this time, when the court opened, the outside was immediately crowded with people watching. The chattering words of the common people outside didn't care for half a cent, but they gave Wu Ru great comfort and a little comfort in his heart. Yin Mo and Yin Beiqing stood watching, and Jing Zhaoyin did not dare to neglect them, so he simply stood to ask questions. Mo Shanghua, as a princess, doesn't have to kneel. Wu Ru, as a person of the Moon Kingdom, doesn't have to kneel. The trial of this case is quite interesting. As usual, he ordered people to read the paper, and then Jing Zhaoyin ordered Wu Ru to present evidence. Wu Ru's eyes swept around Yin Mo Li, who was standing on the side of Yin Beiqing. He felt a little uneasy, but now that the arrow was on the string, he had to shoot it. Wu Ru secretly wanted to bite his teeth and called two guys dressed up. He said in a loud voice, "I tell you, these two people were my second younger brother's personal servants. They can prove that the previous grudge between my second younger brother and Princess Yu is true." Although they were also from Yuegua, the two little fellows were humble, and they knelt down to reply at the moment. One of them said, "I'll tell you back. I remember very well that it was Princess Yu who disguised herself as a man and cheated our second master. She said with a box of gold that she bought the Jianghe, and then stole the gold back secretly, which made our second master lose both money and people. The second master was so angry that he was driven away by Princess Yu and left Yuzhou overnight. He was a little dissatisfied. I didn't expect that Princess Yu resented that the second master embarrassed her in public and sent someone to assassinate her, which killed our master. It's clear that Jianghe was finally sold to Yin Moli. At the moment, the two boys never mentioned it. They even dare not look at Yin Moli. They just glanced at him and didn't know it. The bottom of the flower eyes on the street suddenly crossed a cold color, and his eyes turned on Yin Mo's face. At the moment, his face has been restored to calm, and his eyes and the face of flowers on the street are also looking at it. Before he thought about it, another little fellow opened his mouth with tears and tears. Our second master is just a businessman. He was in Yuzhou on that day. Finally, our master sent someone to come. This matter is still not settled. The implication is Yin Beiqing's intentional maintenance. When Wu Ru heard the words, he also felt a little sad. The land of God is vast and abundant. Today, I will never sue you again. Please make the decision for my dead second brother. Then he made a deep bow. Jing Zhaoyin's eyes swept around Yinma's Yinbei City. He was thinking about how to open his mouth. Yinbei City said coldly, "Only one witness can count." After a pause, he turned his head and took a long look at Yin Emoli. "If I say that I saw my brother bribe Jing Zhaoyin, can you believe it?" Yin Moli's face turned black. Jing Zhaoyin was also shocked and sweating. He quickly squeezed out a smile. "Your Highness is serious. Your Highness is serious. Just two people's cards are not enough. Wu Ru, do you have any material evidence?" After wiping the sweat on his forehead, Wu Ru continued to ask questions. Wu Ru was obviously ready. He immediately took out a token from the cultivation and sent it to the yamen. "This is what my second brother pulled from the person who hurt him before he died. On that day, those people sneaked into the bandits and killed my second younger brother, which was also hidden by the young man beside my second younger brother before Princess Yu's people came to the autopsy." One of the boys immediately stepped forward and said, "I didn't dare to make a public statement at that time, but now I dare to take it out and please plead for the second master." The flowers on the street look like this, and there is no expression on the cool and beautiful face. When Jing Zhaoyin looked over, she turned her head and looked at Qinya behind her. "Show your brand to adults." Qinya answered as like as two peas and took a piece of wood card that was exactly the same and handed it to the yamen. "This is the identity card that all the people in King Yu's mansion have. Please have a look." Qinya smiles and opens her mouth. If you look carefully, you can see that her style is very similar to the flower on the street. The identity card of King Yu's mansion is engraved with the names of every servant in the mansion, and the wood used to make the card is also a good pearwood. It is covered with paste, smooth and light, with the name of Chinya written in small seal script. As 2 Ps, the other brand is identical with the brand. The handwriting written in the same book is exactly alike, and the same is written in the small seal script of ink pen, which is written as Lu 5. Jing Zhaoyin turns to Yin Beicheng and tells himself in his heart that if he is not in favor, he is also a vassal. However, what he clearly saw was Yinbei's city, but Yin Moli suddenly opened his mouth. "What difference can you see?" Jing Zhaoyin turned his head and looked at it carefully. He said, "There's no difference. If you want to believe what this guy said, this thing can be used as evidence." "You don't know wood. You can tell the difference just by looking at me?" Yin Beicheng snorted, leaving no face to refute. Jing Zhaoyin suddenly looks at Yin Moli for help. Yin Moli's face was slightly heavy, and his skin didn't smile. "Brother Huang, you're just a jury." Yin Beicheng snorted and said, "Brother Huang is just monitoring." Jing Zhaoyin should not always look at Brother Huang so as not to let him be accused of favoritism. Yin Mo Li's eyes flashed a touch of gloom and said abruptly, "What the emperor said is, I dare not." Jing Zhaoyin wiped the sweat on his forehead again, turned his head and said, "Come on, please ask a carpenter to identify." "No need." As soon as Jing Zhaoyin's words were passed down, Mo Shanghua stepped forward and took one of the wooden cards in his hand. In Jing Zhaoyin's suspicious eyes, Mo Shanghua holds one end of the wooden card in both hands. With a little effort, the wooden card is broken into 2 pieces. Then she picked up another piece and broke it again with her bare hands. Jing Zhaoyin was stunned. It's not easy for an adult man to break a thick wooden card. How does a weak woman do it? The most important thing is that the expression of Mo Shanghua hasn't changed from the beginning to the end. It's still a light look, as if it was just a small matter for her. Yin Moli's face was slightly heavy. Yin Beicheng's lips are slightly crooked, and the color of worry in his eyes is greatly reduced. He seems to have seen his daughter-in-law return after winning the lawsuit. Kneeling on the head of the 2 boys also see silly eyes. Wu Ru was also surprised at the strength of the flowers on the street, and he felt uneasy. Outside the hall, people with good eyesight caught a glimpse of the scene and exclaimed in amazement. There was a lot of discussion. Although Wu Ru was a little uneasy, he didn't dare to give in. He immediately exclaimed, "You destroyed the evidence in court." After that, he said, "Even if you're a princess, you must not bully others like this. I didn't expect that the kingdom of God should be like this. It seems that my second younger brother is destined to suffer injustice and die of injustice." The common people outside the hall immediately criticized, and their eyes were full of disdain. When Jing Zhaoyin hesitates, Mo Shanghua calmly takes half of the 2 broken wooden cards. All the wooden plates in King Yu's mansion are made of pearwood. Although there is no difference between the 2, there is still some difference in color. The color of pearwood is yellow. After a pause, she took another dagger and cut the wooden plate from Wu Ru's side. This jujube wood has many patterns. If you compare the 2, you can see. As he said this, he cut Chinya's brand and put them in front of Jing Zhaoyin. Jing Zhaoyin took it and compared it according to what Mo Shanghua said. When he saw that, his eyes suddenly exclaimed, "How does the princess understand this? It's more than that." Mo Shanghua chuckled and said, "There are fine gold powder in the pear pulp. Even if it is made of this token, it will never be done." Jing Zhaoyin was even more astonished. Mo Shanghua's face was light, and there was no pride. "I took care of all the houses in the palace, so I had to make more preparations to prevent others from falling in." Then she turned her head and took a look at Yin Beicheng. Yin North City, a tiny smile, a pretty face, whole small C came forward, holding a tray came. Mo Shanghua went forward and lifted the red cloth covered on the tray. Inside, there were neatly arranged wooden plates and a booklet. Here are the famous brands of some of the servants of the royal family, which can be compared by adults one by one. The name and family background of all the servants are in this book, but there is no Lu Wu. The pamphlet contains not only the families of every servant, but also their personal deeds. Therefore, The pamphlet is stamped with official seal and cannot be forged. In addition, the paper yellowing, a look as a long time is really no doubt. Jing Xiaoyin looked at it one by one, without making a sound. Wu Ru's heart clattered for a while, and his eyes showed some confusion. However, before the brain had time to think, Yin Beiqing's words came. Jing Xiaoyin, what should be the crime of forging evidence? The words were to Jing Xiaoyin, but his eyes were to Yin Moli. Yin Mo's gloomy color at the bottom of his eyes had been aggravated, and his face sank a little. He didn't quarrel with Yin Beiqing, so he simply shut up. Jing Xiaoyin didn't dare to look at Yin Moli's eyes. He knew what Yin Beiqing meant. He immediately slapped the startled wood and scolded. Bold, you are warning to forge evidence. There is no Lu Wu in this book at all. The two boys were so scared that they knelt on the ground and shivered. For a long time, they could not tell why. Wu Ru's face was a little bit hasty, and his mind was thinking about how to deal with it. If Master Wu doesn't say it, I'll say it. Mo Shanghua's eyes swept around from Yin Mo Li's face to Wu Ru's face one by one, and then opened his mouth. The two boys presented false evidence for another purpose. In this way, what they said before is not credible. What they said before is a deliberate act of shifting responsibility. Seeing this, Wu Ru immediately came forward to retort. You, how do you know their words are untrustworthy? Maybe someone deliberately misled them. Mo Shanghua just pulled his lips and sneered in his eyes. Master Wu Da's words have become really fast. If the testimony is so important, you can't keep changing, let alone these two guys. Wu Ru was choked and could not speak. Before he had time to refute, the words in the street came back. I've heard that the most popular saying among businessmen is that no business is without fraud. Today, it's really an eye-opener. People outside the hall listen to the clouds, and their eyes change again. The more you talk about it, the more you don't understand it. Princess Yu is really a person with a needle in her heart. Clearly is reasonable in the body, the waist pole sun just quite straight. This month, the royal family of the Kingdom of God set up the princess of the Kingdom of God in such a way. It's really deceiving. I won't buy anything from the Wu family in the future. When Wu Ru listened to some people's words, his face became more and more ugly. He looked around the crowd as if looking for something. Without seeing the familiar figure, Wu Ru was completely confused. Mo Shanghua stares at Wu Ru, who is in a hurry. He says, Master Wu Da is a smart businessman. He never does business at a loss, and he never does anything worthless. You know, if you take a wrong step carefully, it will be very difficult for you to further your business in the Kingdom of God in the future. After a pause, she continued, According to my opinion, it's totally someone else's fault. I'm afraid the two guys' previous words are also to shirk responsibility. Few of them are true. Master Wu Da was deceived and cheated to come out. If at last they make a false accusation, I'm afraid my efforts in the Kingdom of God will be destroyed. This is a step down for Wu Ru. Mo Shanghua Yin Beiqing is also Baorong Emperor's son's daughter-in-law, is the royal family. Now Wu Qingjuan has just tried to open up the market of the Kingdom of God, and has invested about 50,000 taels of silver in it. If you offend the shrewd and intelligent Mo Shanghua at this time, I'm afraid it's not easy to do, and I don't know how to calculate the loss. Damn boy, why didn't you tell him that the flower on the street is so smart and agile? This time, I'm ready to defend myself. No amount of words can compare with the real evidence that can directly defy public opinion and prove itself innocent. In the light of lightning and flint, Wu Ru had already thought about many things, so he came forward in a hurry and kicked one of the little guys. Son of a bitch, how dare you lie to me? If it's time to cheat me, how dare you do it now? Do you really think that if you were a member of the Moon Kingdom, you could do anything without being responsible? Finally, I can't help but feel a little tentative. The light of the flowers on the street swept away, and a subtle dark color appeared in the black and white eyes. No matter the people of the Kingdom of God or the people of the Moon, if they do something wrong, they should be punished. That is to say, the Kingdom of God can't do things in the Kingdom of the Moon and it also has the right to minor punishment and severe admonition. She said, I have heard that in previous years, if people from other countries did something wrong in our country, they would be sent back directly and handed over to the punishment department of the State of the Moon to seal up everything in our country. Jing Zhaoyi nodded and said, there is such a precedent. That's good. Mo Shanghua nodded slightly and looked at Wu Ru. Master Wu, although there are cases in front of me, my identity is different. My face represents the face of the royal family of the Kingdom of God. No matter who insults me, the Kingdom of God will not let it go easily. It's natural. Yin Beicheng, standing on one side, was in the same tone. Finished saying, don't forget to turn ahead to see a Yin Mo Li of the body side. The Emperor elder brother thinks to say, so can right? Yin Mo Li strong, endure heart, almost hematemesis impulse. Only slightly nodded, did not say much. Wu Ru's face changed completely with a sudden chill in his heart. Miss Liu, the former prime minister, clearly agreed with him that there would be noble people to help him, but now the royal families of the Kingdom of God are all facing the Princess Yu. Only now did he realize that he was completely used as a chess piece. If you can't get out of here today, I'm afraid his huge industry in the Kingdom of God will come to nothing. That's equivalent to taking half of his life, and the elders of the clan can't account for it. What's more, although Wu Ru is dead, they have many children in such a rich family. Those brothers are waiting for his pigtails. But for a moment, Wu Ru had already thought about it clearly. He suddenly turned around and kicked one of the boys again. He said angrily, little bastard, what's the matter with this wooden card? Don't you tell me clearly? The boy was completely confused by Wu Ru's 2 feet and subconsciously said, Master, it's not you. You beast. If you want to bite me at random, you can't do it before a word was finished. Wu Ru's face suddenly sank, and he quickly kicked the boy's face. The boy was kicked in the middle of the nose bone. In a moment, he was bleeding and couldn't speak anymore. Another boy saw this. His body suddenly trembled like chaff, lying on the ground, and yelled, My lord, he picked up that wooden card, which has nothing to do with me. Mo Shang Hua Gu Jing's General Mao's son swept to come over, light way. That I ask you, what you said before is true? Shaking his body, he hesitated and spat out a word, yes. Mo Shanghua nodded slightly, did not explain more, but looked at Yin Beicheng. Yin Beicheng stepped forward 2 steps, turned around, and told the boy beside him. Soon, a man and a woman came into the hall. The leader is actually a green dress, shaking the folding fan, especially the flower willow. Behind him, however, was a woman of 10 years. Flower willow forward, slightly perfunctory arch hand. It is a salute. My lord, I am Qian Lu, the owner of Qinghuan Pavilion in Yuzhou. Halfway through, he said with a long smile, No, it should be the owner of Qinghuan Pavilion in Yuzhou. My lord, you and I had some friendship before. On the surface of Qinghuan Pavilion is Qin Lu Chu Pavilion, which has opened all over the Kingdom of God. There are shops everywhere. Jing Zhaoyin is also a man, so he has to go and have a look. Naturally, he has never met Hui Qian Liu. Jing Zhaoyin has some unnatural lips to cough lightly, and his face is red. Yin Mo Li Mao color slightly sank a few minutes, palms slightly tightened. The flowers on the street are also quite surprised. I never thought that Hua Qianlu came here in person. Hua Qianlu smiles and shakes his folding fan in the courtroom. The lord of my pavilion came here specially today, but he has nothing else to do. He just heard that the steward separated by Yuzhou was coming to testify for people, and he had nothing to do. So he came with me, so that some people would not know the people in my Qinghuan pavilion, so they would take the opportunity to climb and bite. He said, looking at the young woman behind him. The woman's face was beautiful. She went forward and gave a little salute. Then she gave a kind smile to the flower in the street and said, My lord, I have a word to say. Jing Zhaoyin looked around, glanced at Yin Moli's not-so-beautiful face, then looked at Yin Beicheng with a wonderful look, cleared his throat, and said, Why do you want to testify? You can tell me now. I'm not impressed by these 2 little fellows. but I'm impressed by the second master, Wu Chengwu, you said. The woman lowered her eyebrows and made a statement that the Master Wu heir is very generous, and his style of conduct is very conspicuous. He has been at Chenghuan Pavilion for several days, but he is all by himself. He has never seen anyone else, let alone the princess. But one day, the second master of the Wu family got drunk and tried to tease Princess Yu in an alley not far from Chenghuan Pavilion. My family sent someone to see him. Fortunately, he was quick behind the princess and didn't let him succeed. Later, the second master of the Wu family came to the pavilion with a masked young man. When I heard the news later, it was the matter that the second master of the Wu family died in the hands of the mobs outside the city. The logic of behavior is still clear, and the details are excellent. There is no mistake. What's more wonderful is that she has never looked up at anyone from beginning to end. She looks modest and courteous. She doesn't look like a woman from a brothel. This is the most outstanding feature of Chenghuan Pavilion. Although the women in the pavilion are born in brothels, they are all knowledgeable and understanding. How can it not make men's hearts move? It's just that this is not the time to pay attention. After listening to the woman's words, people looked different, especially Yin Mo Li. The mouth lightly flickered, thin lips slightly pursed. Now it's half the time to speak. He is not totally involved in this matter. If he speaks rashly at this time and pulls himself into the water, it will not be worth the loss. Therefore, he is trying to get involved in this matter and has to stay out of it. Damn, it's all that stupid Lu Qianqian. How could such a big mistake have happened if she hadn't made her own decision, secretly deployed her plan, and then informed him when the plan started? What's more, it's obvious that this matter has been leaked for a long time. If not, how could Mo Shanghua have reacted earlier? My lord, the cold and indifferent voice of the flower on the street suddenly rang out and said, "What kind of place is Chenghuan Pavilion? Everyone who wants to do it is clear. As a woman, how can I go there without any reason? The other day, I was just looking for someone. I changed my men's clothes just for convenience. I didn't expect to be coveted. Naturally, Wu Chang held a grudge when he failed to succeed. Later, when he knew my identity, he also made a quarrel in front of my palace. This matter is well known in Yuzhou. If you ask a little bit in Yuzhou, you'll know whether it's true or not." Hearing this, Jing Zhang nodded and asked subconsciously, "Who are you looking for?" The flowers on the street turned slightly, but they don't open their mouth. It was Hua Qianlu who started to laugh a little unkindly, and his eyes swept to Yinbei City. Princess Yu is always powerful, so naturally she's going to. The following words are not going on, but the meaning is obvious. All of them understood in a moment, and the eyes of Yin Beiqing suddenly became delicate. Yin Beiqing's eyes, nose and heart were still standing like a mountain, urging, "Things are so obvious. Doesn't Jing Zhaoyin pronounce a sentence? If you delay the second emperor's brother's return to the palace, will you be guilty?" Jing Zhaoyin, suddenly a clever, sat up straight body, took the startling wood on the table, suddenly a pat. It has been found out that Wu Qing's death has nothing to do with the princess. It is clear that you deliberately framed him, but the villains complained first and confused right and wrong. It's really annoying and hateful. Hearing the speech, the people outside the hall also began to talk about it. Some people even pointed to Wu Ru and others in the hall and said, "Get out of our kingdom! Get out of the kingdom! Get out of the kingdom!" Wu Ru was a bit defeated, and he leaned down and said, "My lord, I don't know about this. I think it must be because these two little bastards are afraid of getting angry with them and deliberately say something to deceive them. Otherwise, someone is behind their back. They are manipulated and used by others." The little fellow didn't expect that Wu Ru would turn over his face faster than he would turn over his book. He cried and begged for mercy and cried, "My lord, what the little man said is true. Material evidence and human evidence are all in front of us. It is useless for them to argue." Jing Zhaoyin directly took a picture of Jing Tangmu and said, "First, put them in jail together and wait for the release. As for Wu Ru, I will take care of him for the time being. When my palace reports to your majesty, I am dealing with him. Wu was still calm. He accepted the verdict, but he was already thinking about it. In any case, the matter had to be pushed out, so the two boys were allowed to act as a substitute for the dead. He was spending more money to keep his property in the kingdom of God. The two boys were dragged down crying. The matter has been dealt with, brother. I think we should go back to the palace together and report back to our father. Yin North City can, however, smile. Turn out to see to the Yin Mo Li that the complexion is not good. Yin Mo Li Mao, color gloomy, swept him one eye, and looked at, even if won the lawsuit, from the proof of innocence. Still humble Mo Shanghua, speechless, walked out. There was a happy smile on the face of Yin Beicheng, but there was a cold smile in his eyes. Mo Shanghua didn't have any ups and downs in her heart. She turned to the flowers and willows and said, "Thank you for your help." Then he looked at the young woman and said with the same friendly smile, "Thank you for coming here from 100 miles to prove it to me. You're welcome." The woman pursed her lips and laughed, but she didn't care. Hua Qianlu shakes the folding fan and says with a smile, "I'm not helping you for nothing. When you come back from the palace, if you don't invite me to the last restaurant in the imperial city, I'll calculate the account expenses with you." Hua Mei's heart beat on the street. Before he could respond, Yin Beicheng strode over and held her hand. "What kind of wine do you want to eat? I have a lot to say to the princess. If you want to eat, you can go by yourself." Yin Beicheng turned down Hua Qianlu. Then he took out a purse from his sleeve and threw it into Hua Qianlu's arms. "These are all for you. Don't bargain. These are the only things. Say, then can't help breaking up of pull Mo Shanghua leave. Even don't give Hua Qianlu the chance to speak. Getting along for such a long time, Mo Shanghua has a little understanding of Yin Beicheng's nature. It's funny to see him leave in such a hurry. Lord." She suddenly opened a mouth, the eyebrow eye with a smile to the eyebrow eye of the superior Yin North City handsome. "Why here so sour? But whose family got jealous and accidentally knocked it over?" Yin North City lightly hums a embrace tight Mo Shanghua's shoulder. The footstep does not stop. Is turn over again how? The eyebrows and eyes on the street are bent. The radiant of the lips is increased by 3 points, and the cool cheeks are added with 3 points of spring color, which is particularly good-looking. Yin North City breathing slightly tight, I bottom across a CU heat wave. Busy raised his head, not in the street. The protagonists of this lawsuit have dispersed, and even the onlookers have scattered home, but the smile on Hua Qianlu's lips has faded. He took back the folding fan in his hand and sighed with some disappointment. The years are quiet, but that's all. The young woman looked up at him and sighed. "I don't know when I can find my lover." After finding out the truth, Yin Beicheng, Yin Moli, and Jing Xiaoyin naturally want to report back to the palace together. The party went to the palace together. Yin Mo first said the result, and then Jing Xiaoyin wrote a memorial and a confession. After repeating the whole process of the case, it was an account. Baorong Emperor's face, which was a little angry about the incident, gradually eased down. After hearing the result clearly, his face was cold. How dare a businessman in Xiaoya Kingdom accuse the royal family of China? Is it true that there is no one in our kingdom? What annoyed him was not the daughter-in-law whom Wu Ru and others had slandered, but the fact that they had trampled on the face of the royal family, which Baorong Emperor could not tolerate. What's more, if this matter is preempted by the people of Yuegwa, I don't know how many articles to make in it. How many disasters will it bring? The more he thought about it, the more angry Baorong was. He even suspected that this was a conspiracy laid by Yuegwa. When he thought about it, his face sank completely. Yuegwa is really deceiving people too much. I will escort these people to the kingdom of the moon, including the merchant, and all his shops in the kingdom of God. All the people in the shop will be expelled from the kingdom of God. Minister comply with the order. Such a verdict, it is to let Yin North City, Mo Shanghua, heart a little comfort. The couple came forward to thank you. Baorong Emperor looked at his daughter-in-law, who was neither humble nor haughty, and his son, who was handicapped but never self-abased and timid. His face softened slightly. For the first time in my life, I praised them. You're both very well. You haven't lost my royal face." Although he didn't like Yin Beicheng and his wife, he did an excellent job of slapping a sweet date. What's more, the former national master was exposed by the current national master. He was just a liar who had no real talent and could use some tricks. What he said before, such as that the birth of Yin Beicheng would affect the national movement, was not believable. Mo Shanghua had no waves in her heart, and her eyes were gathered and said, "My father and emperor are praising me." Yin Beicheng sneered in his heart and had to say with a smile, "My son is not very clear about these things. It's all due to Wang Fei. In fact, since the day of Wu Cheng's death, the princess has always been on guard against this day. If not, today she will really suffer this injustice." After a pause, he said with a smile, "It's just that the Wuru is just a merchant from 1 month's country, but he dares to slander the princess of our country. It can be seen that he is instructed by others. He also asked his father and emperor to thoroughly investigate this matter and never let go of the curfew behind him." Yin Mo's eyes were cold, slightly closed and silent. Emperor Baorong had nodded his head and pulled out a sneer from the corner of his lips. "I will definitely find out." However, what he thought was obviously different from Yin Beicheng. Yinbei City is hoping that it's best to find out Yin Moli, while Baorong Emperor suspects that Yueg would deliberately set a trap. However, for what purpose? In short, it is a matter of certainty that the matter should be strictly investigated. Today, Yin Moli, who lost repeatedly, didn't expect that something more irritating to him was still behind. Baorong Emperor's eyes swept, but he set his eyes on him and personally assigned him to investigate. He wanted to get rid of his marriage, but Yin Beicheng interrupted what he wanted to say. "I'm afraid it's not convenient to investigate the case at this time because the second brother's marriage is near. The third brother has already been married. Surely there is no such secret worry. Why don't you let the third brother come? The third prince is the elder brother of the two. Because of the low birth mother, he did not fight for your qualification." But this matter attracted Baorong Emperor's attention. Yin Moli was involved in it by accident, and Lu Qianqian's secret chest was also involved. If he really found out something, wouldn't it be a bad thing? Therefore, even in Yin Moli's heart, he had to go forward and say, "Although the wedding date is approaching, it's a matter of great importance. My son will never tolerate someone who slanders my royal family. My son is willing to come to investigate in person. As for the marriage, there will be no delay if you work hard. It is a state of righteousness." Baorong Emperor is very pleased and nod, "So it's up to you to do." Yin Moli was full of anger, but he had to bow his head. With a wave of his hand, Emperor Baorong was about to ask them to step down. However, the eunuch in charge of the imperial palace rushed in, his face full of panic. Your Majesty is not well. Prince 13 is critically ill." Baorong Emperor suddenly got up, his face changed. "What's the matter? Make it clear." The eunuch knelt on the ground and trembled and said, "It's been better some time ago. It's getting cold some time ago. I don't know what's going on today. I've been feverish. I'm in a coma, and my old illness has recurred." The eunuchs are at a loss. Emperor Baorong suddenly got up and strode down from the dragon chair. He did not care about Yin Beicheng and others who were still in the hall, and walked out in a hurry. Although Yin Xinchuan has decided to get married, he is still living in the palace now, so Emperor Baorong naturally wants to visit him. Mo Shanghua Yin North City looks at each other, also followed up. So is Yin Moli. After all, having the name of brothers means that they are not happy with each other. In front of Emperor Baorong, they also have to be brothers and sisters. Now that his younger brother is critically ill, they naturally want to visit him. When people rush to, Yin Xinchuan's mother Shufei has been guarding Yin Xinchuan in the hall for a long time. As soon as he saw Emperor Baorong leading Yin Moli to Yinbei City, he quickly came forward to greet him. Shufei is not so old as she is this year, but she is still in her 30s and 12s. It seems that she is not in good health. Now when she sees her son like this, she is heartbroken. Her beautiful eyes are red and swollen, and her tears are falling when she sees Baorong Emperor. In the past, Baorong Emperor, who was quite tender in front of his concubine, only quietly comforted him a few words, and then rushed forward to visit Yin Xinchuan on the bed. In the past, Yin Xinchuan was always a little sick, and his body and bones were very thin. A man of high stature was like a pair of bones. Today, the cheeks are even thinner. Ben is very handsome and gentle. His eyebrows and eyes are slightly sunken now. His eyes are tightly closed. There is no blood on his lips. He even breathes more mildly than ordinary people. Although Baorong Emperor had no feelings for Yin Beicheng, he loved Yin Xinchuan very much. Seeing him like this, he was heartbroken. He looked at the doctors with heartache and annoyance and said angrily, "What's the matter with Prince 13? Why do you look so ugly?" To the hospital's two doctors came half, at the moment already knelt on the ground, one by one shaking like chaff sieve. No one dares to answer. For a long time, the deputy judge of Taiyuan Hospital boldly said, "Tell your majesty that the 13th prince is not in good health. His trip to Yuzhou a few months ago hurt him even more and caused a relapse of the old disease. Now, I'm afraid. He dare not say the following words anyway. Son of a bitch." Baorong Emperor could not hear such words at all. He picked up the empty bowl on the table and smashed it. Although it didn't hit, the sound of the empty bowl breaking on the ground was like a magic sound, which made all the doctors very scared and didn't dare to say more. "If you can't cure the 13th prince, I want you to be buried with me in the Imperial Hospital." Baorong Emperor angry, sad words again. Among his many princes, Yin Xinchuan is the most gentle and generous. His appearance and temperament are most similar to those of his youth. Although he is not in good health, he has been asked to be taken care of carefully. Now he is suddenly told that he is critically ill. How can he not be in a hurry? Xu Fei see this scene, his tears, eyes full of despair. Mo Shanghua and others stood a little farther away. Although they couldn't see Yin Xinchuan's face clearly, they were shocked to see Emperor Baorong so angry. Yan Mo Li's mind was the most sensitive. He immediately came forward to comfort him and said, "Don't worry about your father. 13 Emperor's younger brother has his own appearance. He has survived the great calamity, and he will certainly stick to it this time." After a pause, he turned his head and looked at the doctors kneeling on the ground. "If you can't, someone else will come. Someone can cure the 13 Emperor's younger brother. Go to the court and find all the remaining doctors." The doctors were relieved. They all looked at Yin Mo with gratitude and went down in a hurry. He flattered Emperor Baorong and gave the imperial doctors a favor. Yin Moli was also very clever. Baorong Emperor's complexion really eased a lot. He looked up at Xu Fei, who was almost out of breath. "Xu Fei, you should sit down first. Shinner will be okay." Xu Fei sobbed and nodded, and immediately someone from the palace moved the seat. Yin Moli also stepped forward and comforted him. Father should attach importance to his own body. Don't worry too much. Baorong Emperor Light didn't see him more. Mo Shanghua Mao Guang looks at Yin Xinchuan lying on the bed, struggling a little in his heart, and finally decides to hold on for a while. Now she's in the palace. She has to consider every step carefully. She must not be reckless. Since Yin Moli has proposed to be treated by the Supreme Hospital, she'd better not interfere. After the Supreme Hospital has seen the verdict, if not, it's more appropriate for her to do it. If not, it will only lead Baorong Emperor suspicious, implicate Yanbei City. Baorong Emperor didn't speak at the moment, just looking at Yin Xinchuan on the bed anxiously. No one in the room dared to speak. They all held their breath for fear that the heavy breath would make Baorong Emperor angry. In such a big room, only Xu Fei sobbed in a low voice. So they waited for a moment, but the verdict of Tai Hospital didn't come yet. Instead, the news of Empress Lin's coming was handed in by the palace maid. Baorong Emperor, slightly a meditation, way. "Let the queen go back first. Here have I good." The maid hesitated for a moment. Finally, Lu Wang answered and said, "I'm going to talk to the Empress." Baorongdi is worried that the queen's life is too hard and rushes to Yin Xinchuan. Mo Shanghua saw it with his own eyes, and he couldn't help sweeping Yin Beicheng at his side. How powerful is his identity as a national teacher? How could you still have such a great influence on Baorong Emperor, even though Yu Ning knew how to use the magic as a diversion? Baorong Emperor's eyes, nose, and heart stood still as a mountain, with no expression on his face. At this point, it is natural to say less and make less mistakes. Outside the hall where the 13th prince lives, Lu Wang bows and respectfully replies, "If you go back to the Empress, your Majesty knows how hard you've been working recently, and you're very tired and weak. I'm afraid you'll get sick when you go in, so please go back to the palace first. When the third prince gets better, you'll be informed naturally." How hard is it? Can't you even decide your son's marriage? However, since Lu Wang came to tell us in person, there is no room for refutation. Empress Lin felt a little cold in her heart. She could not show anything on her face. She only nodded slightly and said in a soft voice, "Thank you for your kindness." In this way, the Empress of our palace can only go back to rest by herself. After a pause, she looked at the palace with a worried face. If Xian'er has news, she must send someone to inform the palace as soon as possible. Lu Wang sent Empress Lin out in person with a smile. At that time, Yin Mo's face in the hall was no better, and he had to look extremely worried, which really made him angry and resentful. Empress Lin is his mother in name, because with Empress Lin, he can gain the upper hand in the battle for the throne. Now, Empress Lin has been abandoned, which really gives him a headache. As soon as he thought of this, he thought of Ning Tongji's appearance of tearing down the bridge and a series of bad things recently, which made him even more upset. Mo Shanghua just glances at the subtle change of expression on Yin Mo's face and sneers in his heart. Yin North City, speechless, saw Mo Shang to spin one eye toward her lightly wink. Mo Shanghua immediately took back her eyes, not to see more. It was not too late for the rest of the doctors to come. As soon as Empress Lin left, she came back panting. Emperor Baorong stepped aside and said in a deep voice, "Anyway, I want you to keep Xian'er. Too much pressure on the hospital. Rush to diagnosis and treatment." The rest of the doctors were on standby. After a long time, the Supreme Hospital decided to get up and then called the oldest doctor behind him for treatment. In this way, the last group of doctors all looked at it, but they were all disheartened. "Your Majesty, I am incompetent." Two hospital verdict is calm, without saying a word. Then carrying the medicine box kneeled down to plead guilty. Emperor Baorong was so angry that he pointed to the doctor who knelt down and scolded, "Waste! It's all rubbish. If Xian'er is really in trouble, none of you want to be alone." The imperial doctors pressed their heads tightly on the ground in fear and pleaded in unison, "I'm incompetent. Please, Your Majesty." Xu Fei raised a pair of swollen walnut eyes and choked. "Your Majesty, don't embarrass them. It's all life. I'll admit it. Please calm down." Baorong Emperor was silent. He went to the bed and looked at Yin Xinchuan with his eyes closed. His eyes were full of pain. "I can't believe that I'm going to send a man with white hair to a man with black hair again." In this way, only Emperor Baorong dared to say it. Although everyone knew it, none of them dared to say it. My heart is full of sighs. Emperor Baorong had many sons, including 19 princes and princesses, but most of them died early, especially the princes. Today, only 3 princes, King Ling, 7 princes, 8 princes, and 13 princes have grown up safely. Now, even the 13 princes can't bear it. It's really sad. Father, just when everyone held their breath and tried their best to reduce their sense of existence, the cold and indifferent voice of the stranger suddenly rang out. Baorong Emperor didn't look back, and the flower on the street was not embarrassed. He continued, "My son has taught himself medicine, and his 13 Highness is kind to me. I'm willing to have a try. Maybe there's still a glimmer of hope." Bayarandi then turned around, his eyes suddenly sharp, looking up and down at the flowers on the street. "When do you practice medicine?" The flowers on the street frowned and bowed their heads. They were calm on the beautiful and cold face, and let Emperor Baorong look at them. "My son was in the boudoir, and he had secretly learned about it. On that day, he had delusions that if he was an ordinary people, he would be a doctor to save the world. In this case, no word is true. However, the truth is absolutely unspeakable, Liu Bohan and he cut off the relationship. She is not afraid of the emperor's suspicion. Ask a few words. Before Baorong Emperor opened his mouth, Yin Moli came forward and said in a deep voice, "All the Tai in Mantai Hospital are helpless. You just teach yourself a little. How can you really treat them? What's more, Brother Shizen Wang's body is not an ordinary patient for you to practice. His status is precious. How can he be treated by you at will?" Yin Beicheng couldn't cut off Yin Moli's doubts. He said coldly, "Father, my son can't speak. He also knows that there is a saying among the people that a dead horse should be a live horse doctor. It's better to try it than to have nothing to do." On this occasion, he was very wise not to argue with Yin Mo. Yin Moli was obviously not as transparent as Yin Beicheng had seen. He swept his eyebrows and said in a cold voice, "Are you going to stop the 13th Emperor's brother from being a dead horse? What nonsense, he has been in a bad mood in recent days. But now he has seized the opportunity and lost control of his mood." Shut up! Emperor Baorong really showed his anger and yelled in a deep voice, "Your brother is still lying here, but you have a dispute here. Is it because I'm dead?" Yin Mo Li face a dark, busy kneel down, "Son, Chen no wrong." Yin Beicheng's eyes flashed with satire, and his eyes were silent. "If I do it again, I will not be lenient." Baorondi's face did not get much better. He turned his head and looked at the flowers on the street. "You have a try." Mo Shanghua nodded slightly, went forward and pulled Yin Xinchuan's wrist to feel his pulse. Rao is a skilled doctor. She had a long time of diagnosis before she was diagnosed. He said, "It's the same as what Yutai said, but in my opinion, it's not that there is no medicine to cure." Baorong Emperor's dark eyes suddenly brightened, and his emotion was a little restrained and excited. "Are you serious?" Mo Shanghua nodded positively, took out a small porcelain vase, poured out a pill, and said in a soft voice, "This pill, which I spent all my efforts, exhausted precious medicinal materials, and kept refining without sleep, has warm and tonic properties and can save the life of His Highness for the time being, and will not stimulate His Highness's body." Don't say Baorong Emperor is Shu Fei is also full of suspicion, looking at the flowers on the street, in the heart a little guard indignation. After all, in her heart, Yin Xinchuan became what he is now because of the flowers on the street. Baorondi also had some doubts, so he ordered too many hospital sentences. Mo Shanghua Jitsu handed over the pill and the whole porcelain vase to the hospital. She was calm and didn't panic. Yin Beicheng is also a calm face, eyes closely with the flowers, eyes full of trust. After a while, the judge of Tai Hospital looked up in surprise. "I didn't expect that, Princess, you could really make such a good medicine." The flowers on the street nodded slightly and looked humble. Seeing the verdict, the Supreme Hospital looked at Emperor Baorong and said, "Tell your Majesty, this is really a good medicine for warming and tonifying. As for the efficacy, I think we can only know after taking it. It's okay to take some of the 13 princes' body now." Baorong Emperor felt a little comfort in his heart and nodded to the flowers on the street. Mo Shanghua just came forward, and with the help of the maid in waiting, she fed the pill into Yin Xinchuan's mouth. The pill melts in the mouth, so it's easy to take. Mo Shanghua carefully considered it, fed 2 of them, and then told the maid of honor next to him, "Take pen, ink, paper, and inkstone. I need to prescribe a prescription to relieve your Highness's fever." The imperial doctors were afraid of their hands and feet, and they all thought their life was very important. Naturally, they didn't dare to take medicine rashly. Even Yin Xinchuan's high fever had to go down in the future, so they all cried out that he was incompetent. Mo Shanghua, son, ran in the heart, the hands of nonstop pen, writing prescription. After a while, a piece of medicine had been written. As usual, it was read by the Supreme Hospital. Then it was taken down and immediately suffered. The maids in the palace didn't dare to neglect them, so they quickly took the prescription and went to the Tai Hospital to collect the medicine. During this period, everyone was waiting patiently in the room until Yin Xinchuan took the medicine and his fever subsided, so that everyone's heart was relaxed. There are many maids in the palace, silently for the flowers on the street are also relieved. Mo Shanghua himself obviously didn't care much about it. He explained some things and said, "This is the way it is today. Your Highness needs a good rest. Your father should also pay attention to the dragon body." Not bad. Baorong Emperor's look eased a lot, and the flowers on the street also had a good look. If you can really cure Xian'er's body, I will surely be rewarded heavily. The flower face on the road is still that pair of not humble, not overbearing appearance. Light way. Sun Minister is just try his best. Emperor Baorong was more and more pleased to see the flowers on the street. He was even a little pleased to see Yanbei City. These days, you will live in the palace for the time being. I will arrange it. Seeing that her son's condition had really improved, Xu Fei was pleased with them, and her eyes softened. Thank you, father. The flowers of Yanbei City sing their thanks in unison. Yin Moli looked at the scene in front of him. The eagle's eyes were a little dark, and the palm of his hand was tightened. Get up. Beirandi got up, raised his hand, and rubbed the corners of his eyes. Then he felt that he had been working here all afternoon and was very tired. I think I'll take more pills when I go back today. Otherwise, the government affairs at night will be delayed until tomorrow. Yin Xinchuan, who had been in a coma, woke up at this time with a very light voice and murmured, "Mother Princess." Xu Fei, who was going to help Baorong Emperor, was shocked. She ran over and held Yin Xinchuan's hand tightly with tears in her eyes. "Xian'er, you are awake." Yin Xinchuan opened his eyes with great effort and pulled his lips toward Xu Fei. Hearing this, Baorong Emperor turned around and enlarged his bed. His eyes were full of concern and looked like a loving father. "Xian'er, how do you feel? What's wrong with your body?" Yin Beicheng and his wife, who were just about to turn around, and Yin Moli turn around one after another. Yin Xinchuan shook his head slightly and said in a soft voice, "It worries my father and mother." "How can it be? It's not your fault. Xian'er, the mother Xian'er, it's really hard for you." Xu Fei wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes with a handkerchief and tried to resist the impulse of crying, softly comforting. Yin Xinchuan should have been used to the tearful appearance of Xu Fei for a long time. His eyes crossed the Emperor Baorong Xu Fei, glanced at several figures behind them, and finally fell on the cold and beautiful face of the flower on the street. Mo Shanghua is not totally heartless. At the moment, seeing him looking over, his eyes also show some worries and gratification. Yin Xinchuan's pale lips gently pursed and raised his eyes to Baorong Emperor, "Father Emperor." Baorong Emperor immediately replied, "Xian'er, what do you want to say to your father?" Chen now. Kiki, Kiki." Yin Xinchuan just opened his mouth. Then he coughed twice and said intermittently, Chen now, with his body like this, is doomed to be unable to marry and have children with ordinary people. I beg the Emperor to cancel the engagement, so as not to miss the girl's life. Chen doesn't want to. Kiki doesn't want to be like this. Mo Shanghua was still wondering why Yin Xinchuan's body suddenly turned into such an appearance, but now he suddenly understood. He just doesn't want to get married. Is it that he deliberately set up this illness? The flowers on the street are not bad. Yin Xinchuan has been alone for many years, and he has been a childhood sweetheart with Lu Qianqian. Unfortunately, Lu Qianqian has already passed away, and he has no worries in his heart. He has no intention to get married. Even for the original master's body of Mo Shanghua, I don't think of others when I see things. All the tolerance is due to the original master, and I haven't had any beautiful thoughts in my heart. I just want to be alone. When the destiny comes, I can go away without any worries. When Empress Lin's Phoenix Edict was just issued, he didn't make any response on the surface. But in fact, he was in a great confusion. As a last resort, he could only use this method to force Baorong Emperor to withdraw his marriage. However, since it was Empress Lin who gave the Phoenix Edict, Emperor Baorong was not good to change it at will. Wen Yin hesitated a little and said, "The girl selected by your mother for you is the daughter of the elder. Her status is precious. It's her blessing to marry you. How can it delay her? It must not be so rash." Yin Xinchuan's smell speech, suddenly severe cough down, just improved some of the complexion, suddenly paled down. Mo Shanghua hurriedly steps forward to feel her pulse. When she raises her eyes, she just sees Yin Sinshuan's sincere eyes. The flower's eyes flickered on the street. After a little consideration, he turned to Emperor Barong and said, "The 13th prince's current physical condition is not subject to any stimulation. If you can, you'd better follow His Highness's wishes. Otherwise, you may have the suspicion of repeated illness." Emperor Baorong's eyes were fixed on Yin Sinshuan, who had a pale face. Yin Sinshuan was lying on the bed, but his eyes were always looking in the direction of Emperor Baorong, asking for father's permission. Seeing Yin Sinshuan's appearance, Xu Fei was heartbroken. She simply gritted her teeth and knelt down in front of Baorong Emperor. "Your Majesty, the imperial doctor predicted earlier that Xin'er might not live to be 25 years old. My concubine knows that it's not lucky to say that, but my concubine is Xin'er's biological mother. She loves Xin'er more than anyone else, and she knows Xin'er's heart best." On the other hand, she wiped the tears of her eyes with her handkerchief. "How difficult the days are for a woman without her husband. I think your Majesty will see that her Royal Highness knows that she is kind-hearted and cannot bear to trouble the women next to her." Then he knelt down with tears on his face. Baorong Emperor, who was very fond of the prince, was still moved. With a slight sigh, he stepped forward and lifted up the lady. "It's all right. I'll go back later and make another decision to choose another marriage for the old and young women in the cabinet. It's a great honor to be married by Baorong Emperor himself, though he can't be married to the royal family." The flower heart on the street sighs a little and silently looks at Yin Sinshuan on the bed. As soon as Baorong Emperor's promise arrived, he seemed to be suddenly relieved. His eyelids sank a little, and he fell asleep in a moment. Baorong Emperor see this, then also returned to the palace to rest. Xu Fei also was advised to return to his palace. The two important people left, and naturally the rest left. Baorong Emperor left Mo Shanghua today. Yin Beicheng stayed in the palace for a while. Mo Shanghua saved Yin Sinshuan. Naturally, the people in the palace did not dare to neglect him. They acted as the consort of the harem together. Even next to Yin Sinshuan's palace, they arranged a better palace for them. But there were so many people in the palace that they didn't sleep well. The most depressing thing for Yin Beicheng was that after returning to the bedroom, Mo Shanghua didn't say a word to him, ignored him, and was extremely indifferent. Yin Beicheng is full of grievances, but he is not in the palace at the moment. Although he has eyes and ears, at least there is room for two people to talk. Now, they can't say directly what matters. The next day, he had to go to court early. In this way, Yin Beicheng could only sleep stiffly. A few days later, because of Yin Sinshuan, Mo Shanghua stayed in the palace to recuperate him. In order to appease her, Emperor Baorong also rewarded her with many good things. Empress Lin, who had been extremely indifferent to her, began to send people to her. There are also Xu Fei, several princesses, and all those who have some faces in the palace have sent people to come. These people are no better than those ladies and wives outside the palace. Naturally, they can't refuse to prevaricate at will. They have to prepare medicine and alchemy every day, and they have to deal with these people. They are very tired. In the past few days, no matter how much energy you spend on the street, you can't help showing a bit of tiredness on your face. Yin Sinshuan is much better now, and he can sit down and walk around. Now he sees the flower on the street, and he feels a little remorse on his face. "My sister-in-law is really sorry because I've been working so hard recently. After 2 days, I'll ask my father for help and change to another doctor so my sister-in-law can go back to the palace and have a good rest." Xu Fei, who was biased against the flowers on the street, nodded with gratitude. "Thanks to you these days, it's time to let you go back and have a good rest." Mo Shanghua nodded slightly and said, "It's not in the way. It's just that it's inconvenient to live in the palace." "But you're not dealt with? Or is it that the eunuchs in the palace are not doing their best?" Xu Fei smells speech, immediately concern of inquiry. Mo Shanghua shook his head. There was no fluctuation on his cold and beautiful face. It's just that I'm not used to it. Looking at the strange flower with so few words and so cold temper, Shu Fei could not help sighing in her heart. If it had not been for such a thing, how could the originally gentle flowers on the street have become like this? Or now, she has married Xian'er. Who thought, in front of this intelligent and beautiful woman, not only failed to marry her Xian'er, but also became his brother and sister-in-law. It's true that things change. Shu Fei sighed, and then hissed and asked. Then there was no words, and the room was quiet. Yin Xinchuan had a lot of grateful words to say with Imo Shanghua, but now in the palace, the relationship between their uncle and sister-in-law is really inconvenient to talk, so he can only listen quietly. Imo Shanghua was not a talkative person. After sitting for a while, he got up to say goodbye when he saw that mother and son had nothing to say. Wait a minute. Shu Fei suddenly got up at this time, hesitated for a long time, and then said, Princess Yu's medical skill is superior. Even the imperial doctors in the imperial hospital are not as good as you. I don't know what prescription you have to take care of Xian'er's body. The implication is to cure Yin Xinchuan? Don't wait for the flowers on the street to bloom. Yin Xinchuan already said with a bitter smile, Mother, for so many years, do you still have hope? When she heard the words, her eyes turned red, but there was some hope in her eyes. Imo Shanghua's Mao Guang lightly crossed Yin Xinchuan's morbid face, pondered in his heart for a moment, and then fell on the faces of many maids in the palace. Shu Fei immediately came over, endured the grief in her heart, and said in a deep voice, Go down. No one can enter without the call of this palace. Yes. The palace maids and eunuchs quickly retreated, and the room became more and more quiet, leaving only two people, Imo Shanghua and Shu Fei's mother and son. In the eyes of the flowers on the street, I was on the alert. Then I lowered a little bit and said, To tell you the truth, I've been thinking about whether to tell my mother at this time these days. Now that I'm at this juncture, I think it's time for me to make it clear with my mother. Shu Fei's heart suddenly tight. Yin Xinchuan's eyes also revealed some confusion. Imo Shanghua stood up and walked closer. Then she said in a low voice, I've been staying in the palace these days. I've seen some prescriptions that your highness used to take and found some secrets in them. All these prescriptions seem to be okay, but one of them is called Lu Fong, but it's not right to use it. Lu Fong is warm in nature, which is the most nourishing and mild thing. There should be nothing wrong with these drugs. But 2 days ago, I ordered someone to catch a pair of medicine according to the medicine that your highness often takes. But I found that there was no Lu Fong in the medicine. Instead, it was replaced by a very similar, but cold medicine. This medicine has no name. I just saw it in Yuzhou. It looks very similar to Lu Fong. Even I once had 5 benevolences. At that time, I mistakenly thought it was Lu Fong, and I knew it was different only after it was picked and used as medicine. If this left Fong has not been replaced, even if the 13 prince can't recover now, his body is still not good, but it doesn't have to be like this. Maybe he can be safe to Whitehead. Shu Fei's face turned white in an instant, and the silk handkerchief in her hand was so tight that she was almost punctured by her slender nails. Yin Xinchuan's expression is light, and there is not much fluctuation on his face. Your Highness has known for a long time. The flower on the street sees this, and the heart is sink, can't help but ask away. Yin Xinchuan shook his head, a bitter smile spilled from the corner of his lips. I just have some guesses, but I've been like this for many years. I'm used to it, and I don't want to study it carefully. Otherwise, it will be a bloodbath in the palace. Xian's son, you such disposition, after all, should let Mother Imperial concubine what to do. Shu Fei's eyes were red, and she could not help holding his hand. She was indignant. Don't worry. My mother will tell your father and make the decision for you. Yin Xinchuan took Shu Fei's hand and made a sudden effort, but his face was still calm and gentle. Mother Princess, you should know me. I don't like intrauterine fighting. Please promise me not to expose it to my father. I won't take that prescription in the future. His gentle nature doesn't mean that he is kind in nature. It's just because he is tired of fighting in the palace. Imo Shanghua quietly gazes at Yin Xinchuan's gentle and firm side face and can't help being silent. Shu Fei is full of resentment and heartache. She has no place to vent. She can't help but suffer again. Mo Shanghua takes a look at Shu Fei, who is crying all the time. Her eyebrows frown slightly, but she doesn't comfort her. Her eyes fall on Yin Sichuan again. Since your highness doesn't want to make a fuss, I can give you a side prescription to recuperate in private. Your highness can send someone to cook and take it quietly. It's better to move out of the palace. It's more convenient. There will be less conspiracy. Yin Sichuan looked sideways at his body. Recently, because of his body, his eyes were red and swollen, and she looked haggard. Then she nodded gently. My sister-in-law's advice is very good. I'll ask for my father's orders, but if it comes down like this, I'll trouble my sister-in-law a lot in the future. The flower on the street lit his lips and laughed. There was no unhappiness on his face. There's no trouble to say. This is what I owe you. Naturally, I should try my best. Shu Fei was relieved. She barely stopped crying and turned to the flower with a grateful smile. Recently, I will remember all kinds of things in my heart. The smile on the lips of the flowers on the street is not reduced, and the smile should go down. Instead, Qinya can't help but look at the green shadow of her master's son. She is worried. There is nothing wrong with the flowers on the street, but there is a lot of turbulence on the court. Because of the affairs of Wu and Ru, Yin Moli was so busy recently that he could not even care about his marriage. So he gave it to the concubines in charge of the palace temporarily. However, King Yu, who had no sense of existence on the court hall, somehow began to show himself recently. Baorong Emperor's view on him is also changing day by day. In addition to the fact that Mo Shanghua recently saved Yin Sichuan, Baorong Emperor's look on him is becoming more relaxed. Courtiers are also used to steering by the wind. For a moment, Yin Beiqing's fame is like Yin Moli, who is modest, respectful, and considerate. As for the rest of the princes, it's not enough to mention them. Yin Sichuan's body is gradually getting better, but it is a long-standing disease after all. It can't be cured overnight. After a full half-month, it's only limited to staying and walking. It's still windless and can't get out of the door. Yin Sichuan also mentioned that he wanted Mo Shanghua to live outside the mansion. But Bao Rondi was obviously worried about his body, so he didn't agree. He detained Mo Shanghua for more than half a month and more days before he let her out of the palace. Yin Moli sighed after tracing for half a month, finally took a scapegoat, that is, Yuzhou petty official who wrote to Shinma Shanghua before. It's true that this petty official has something to do with Mo Shanghua. He is Yunji's brother. In this way, it is even more natural that the crime should be punished. Lu Qianqian outside the palace, though not involved, still had a hard time. The reason is not him, but a secret letter sent by Mo Shanghua. Yuxiangfa Lu Bohun looks at Lu Qianqian, who is gentle and pleasant in front of him, and looks at the secret letter in his hand, and his face suddenly sinks. Qianqian. Lu Bohun tried to restrain his anger and asked calmly, half a month ago, did you go to the jade shop of Wu family? Standing dignified and beautiful, Lu Qian's face was slightly stiff. After a while, she recovered as usual and said, my daughter has been there. I wanted to buy a jade pendant for my father there to calm him down, but I didn't think that the guys there were so deceiving that my daughter almost had an argument with them. It's true, but I didn't mention that I met a stranger. Lu Bohan's eyes sank slightly and turned to sweep the two maidservants behind Lu Qianqian. You two said. The two maidservants were specially assigned by Lu Bohan to wait after Lu Qianqian. Of course, they didn't understand Lu Qianqian's strength. Seeing Lu Bohan's bad complexion, they came forward to tell the truth. Back to the master. What the young lady said is true. However, the young lady and the maidservants later met Princess Yu. The young lady remembered your instruction and did not speak to Princess Yu. Lu Qianqian, slightly stiff body, this just restored some temperature. However, before she could breathe for a moment, Lu Bohan's cold voice rang again. Has the shopkeeper there ever talked to the young lady? The two maidservants looked at each other and did not answer. Lu Qianqian's hands in front of him were tight. Just as he was about to open his mouth, Lu Bohin suddenly accentuated his tone and said in a cold voice, "If I don't make it clear today, I'll pull out your tongue." The two maidservants were so scared that they all trembled, and they all said what they knew, half of which they did not dare to hide. Back to the master, the young lady talked with the shopkeeper. But later, the young lady went to the inner hall to talk with the shopkeeper. The maidservants were waiting outside. I really don't know what the young lady said to the shopkeeper. Please spare my life. Lu Bohin, suddenly silent down, examined and angry eyes fell on Lu Qianqian. Lu Qianqian's whole body was stiff. She was so smart that she couldn't say a word at the moment. After holding for a long time, she was extremely difficult to spit out two words, "Father." "Come on, pull these two maidservants down and kill them." Lu Bohin didn't listen to her, but his eyes full of killing intention turned around the two maidservants, and then fell on Lu Qianqian again. "Others, get out. No one will come without my command." There was only one housekeeper in the room. At this moment, after listening to Lu Bohan's words, he quickly answered and went out to call two bodyguards to come and drag down the two maidservants who were crying for mercy. Then he closed the door of the study and dismissed the people around him. He stood far away from the door and did not dare to eavesdrop. The air pressure in the study dropped suddenly. Lu Bohin looks at the graceful Lu Qianqian in front of him with disappointment and anger, and says nothing. Lu Qianqian's palm is sticky, and his handkerchief is soaked with sweat. But under Lu Bohan's gaze, he can't speak at all. After a long time, she bit her lip and knelt down with her skirt. "My daughter is unfilial, and I ask my father to punish her. If, as usual, I'm afraid that Lu Bohin is only full of love and pity, but his expression doesn't change at the moment." He said in a deep voice, "Qianqian, you are so clever and kind. I didn't expect that you could do such things." Lu Qianqian bit the lip, eyes gradually wet down. "Do you know what you've done?" Lu Bohin looked at Lu Qianqian with a black face. "Do you know how far this matter is involved now? If you are involved, not only you, but also the whole Prime Minister's office will pay for your stupidity." Thinking of this, he was afraid and angry. As Prime Minister of Yipin, he has many eyes on him. As long as he makes a mistake, he will lose his life. Lu Qianqian heard the accusation and immediately went to Lu Bohin with tears on her knees. Her face was full of pear blossom and rain. "Father, daughter is just confused for a moment, and she doesn't know why she is so bewildered. But my daughter did it just to take a breath for you and for her dead mother. She really didn't have any private thoughts." Looking like his mother's delicate face with tears on his face, Lu Bohin can't help feeling slightly moved. However, this matter is related to his official fortune, and he will not be so easy to calm down in any case. "You were not the kindest you ever were, and you didn't want to make trouble with her." Lu Bohan's eyes fell on Lu Qianqian's face, and his tone was full of suspicion. If it was in the past, being a father would never doubt you. But now that His Royal Highness Ling is getting married, tell me the truth. What you do is because of His Royal Highness Ling. Bi was the prime minister of a dynasty. How could he be deceived so easily? Since the father knows, the daughter can only recognize. Lu Qian's heart was flat, and he sobbed and admitted, "My daughter has been in love with Her Royal Highness Ling for a long time, but because of her frame-up, I became infamous, and Her Highness will marry someone else." "Father, do you know how painful my daughter's heart is? Her daughter is cowardly, and she can't swallow it." Say, already can't control of low voice sob, a pair of heartbroken appearance. Lu Bohin stared at Lu Qianqian for a long time, but he was still cruel and said, "Anyway, I will cover it for you. You can't talk about it again. However, Your Highness King Ling, you can't think about it in the future. I will choose another good marriage for you, and you don't have to be sad." "What?" Lu Qianqian's face suddenly changed, and he was stunned. "Father, are you going to choose a marriage for me?" "No, I don't want to. My heart has already belonged to His Royal Highness Ling Wang. Please don't treat me like this." Although she had admitted her life in Yin Moli's place before, She once made such a scene in front of Liu Bohan. Although Liu Bohan was angry, she should let her talk to her 2 years later. Therefore, she still thinks that Liu Bohan will be soft-hearted again. This is not the case. Liu Bohan was really angry this time. She was afraid that she would break into a bigger disaster because of jealousy and hurt herself after staying with Liu Qianqian for 2 years. So she was also ruthless. He angrily dropped several pictures on the table and said angrily, "Do you still expect to marry Ling Wang as a side room?" Liu Qian's lunged for a while, but did not make a response. Not to mention the side room. It is a concubine who has no name and no division. She is willing to. It's just that he's not reconciled, but in today's situation, he's willing to. Seeing her like this, Liu Bohan was so angry that his men slapped her and threw her out. Liu Qianqian's white cheek suddenly became red and swollen, and her tears stopped slightly. She couldn't believe it and looked at Liu Bohan. "Father Yu, I'm just going to wake you up because I'm so unpromising." Liu Bohan's face was black and blue, and he had no guilt or heartache. Liu Bohan's daughter, was so willing to be a concubine that I wanted to be a concubine. I really lost my face as a right prime minister. Go back to the yard and ban it for half a year. You're not allowed to go anywhere for half a year. I will arrange a marriage for you. You can only wait to get married. If Liu Qianqian is struck by lightning, he still needs to explain, but Liu Bohan doesn't give her a chance to speak at all, so he just goes away. Then the housekeeper takes 2 old women with him. He can't help but shut her back in the yard and lock the door. As for her later, turned in Molly for help, there is no reply. Let her almost think that he has become a waste son, full of despair. He was detained in the palace for nearly a month until Yin Molly was about to get married. She didn't feel much. She just felt the same inside and outside the palace. The same intrigue, the same play. But in Yin Beiqing's heart, it was very different. Although he has been brilliant in the court recently, some words can't be said in the palace, and the flowers in the street love and ignore him, which makes him suffer incomparably. Now it's not easy to get out of the palace. Before the carriage arrived at the palace, he went over and looked at the flowers with a smile on his face. "Immerse, now it's out of the palace. Just tell me what's wrong with you. It's better to vent, but don't chill me like this." Say, conveniently the soft and delicate plain hand of Immerse Shanghua is wrapped into the palm of one's hand, and then pulled to one's heart. "Immerse, feel it yourself, my heart will be cold." Immerse Shanghua frowned and drew her hand back. She looked at her quietly and didn't say a word. Yin Beiqing was a little flustered and said, "I swear to God, but I haven't done anything wrong to you. In the past half a month, I don't often see you, because I'm afraid you're angry and don't want to see me." As he said that, he could not help showing a bit of grievance on his face. Indeed, Yinbei City is also busy this half-month. Emperor Baorong has assigned him many things. He is busy, so he can't get away from it. Since you want to know, I don't have to be hypocritical. Immerse Shanghua looked at him for a long time. After all, he opened his mouth. "I only ask you, why do you want to do something in the marriage of the 13 princes? Yin Sichuan has been alone for so many years, and Baorong Emperor has no intention to marry him. If Yin Beiqing hadn't instigated him, Yin Sichuan would not have been killed. Mention this matter. Yin North City, quite some guilty of turn round a face to go. Also nothing is feel other princes all had marriage. Leaving a person to be afraid is not good. The color of the flower eyes on the street is a little cold, and the ruddy lip petals are gently pursed, not talking. Well, it's my fault. I admit that I'm worried that he still has illusions about you. I'm jealous. Don't be angry with me, okay?" Yin Beiqing see this, also don't care about his face, hurriedly forward, careful apology. The cold color on the flower face on the street didn't soften half a minute. He leaned over and didn't look at him. "You know, I'm not just because of this." Yin Beiqing was more and more guilty. After a second thought, he had come to this point anyway. He simply didn't have to hide it, so he simply admitted it all. "Recently, I've been avoiding you a little bit, not because of others, but because of some headache. I want to coax you after leaving the palace. Good Immerse son, I really know wrong. You don't want to be angry. The flower on the street is still like a mountain. The ruddy lip is slightly pursed, and the face is cold. Yin Beicheng didn't want to be half cheeky, so he went over and said, I really know I'm wrong. I'll never do it again in the future. If I do it again, it's bound to thunder in the sky. Before he finished his sentence, the flower's cool eyes swept over, and the rest of his words choked back. If you're forcing me to forgive you in such a way, don't talk to me. Just when the carriage stopped, the flower on the street dropped a word with a cold face and got out of the carriage. To the surprise of Mo Shanghua, at the gate, Nan had been guarding outside the mansion early. When he saw Mo Shanghua, he pulled out a smile. I salute the prince and the princess. The flower on the street nodded slightly, passed her without saying a word, and went straight past. Yinbei City is even more wonderful. He never paid attention to Nanha, so he chased the figure of flowers on the street eagerly and begged for mercy. The South Crane Mao light on two people's bodies, one before and one after turn, immediately understand to come over, in the heart quite some strange. However, after a little consideration, he stepped up to catch up and blinked at Yin Beicheng, which made him look pale. Yin Beicheng's steps were a little, and he gave her a grateful look. The two look calm, is not a bit strange. Previously, those special feelings seemed never to exist in general. After such a look exchange, Nanhe followed Mo Shanghua on behalf of Yin Beicheng and said with a smile, Princess, are you angry with the prince? The flower steps on the road slightly pause, turn him out to see far behind of Yin North City. Didn't open a mouth, be regarded as default. South Crane can't help but smile, temporarily didn't open a mouth, followed Mo Shanghua together to the yard where she lived. As soon as they entered the house, Chinya closed the door tightly, and Yin Beicheng almost ran into it. Chinya is half not aware of the guilty, cold hum away. The princess's life, please wait a moment. Yin Beicheng didn't worry. He walked down the corridor with a face full of distress and confusion. Deep eyes, but clearly over a touch of shallow smile. This kind of flowers, he always felt, it is a bit lovely. Unfortunately, if you're met by a stranger, you'll be angry on the spot. In the inner bedroom, seeing that the flower on the street was not looking good, Nanny didn't even mention Yin Beicheng and said, I'm here to welcome you today. In fact, I'm going to say goodbye to you. The eyebrows of the flowers on the street were slightly cold. Then they were surprised and puzzled. Why? Where are you going? Nanny smiles. His jaw, which was slightly raised in the past, only looks at Mo Shanghua. Wanya has come to the fore now. It's time for me to die of illness. There are many other things waiting for me to deal with. I can't afford to stay in this inner house all the time. The flower on the street was silent for a moment, but suddenly she looked forward to it. I envy you a little bit. The days of licking blood at the edge of a knife, what to envy. South Crane lips cape pull to pull, quite a bit self-mockery. Mo Shanghua's face remained unchanged, and he spoke seriously. It's better than being tired of identity and being trapped in the inner house. What's more, in this inner house, it's not the same way to lick blood. The South Crane is tiny a lung. Immediately smile, or you're more penetrating, Lord really lucky. Mention Yin North City, Mo Shanghua complexion, can't help but cold a few minutes. Directly open the topic. What action do you have recently? South Crane peeps out an enigmatic smile, has not spoken. A trace of chagrin flashed through the flower eyes on the street. What's the matter with you? Knowing that such a question should not be asked, you just ask. The princess's mind is not on this. Don't force it. And he pointed out with a smile that his eyes were not half weird. In my eyes, the Lord has always been superior. Although he is not obvious on the surface, his nature is the strongest. I have never seen him give up face for a woman. A man who is so stubborn in nature, and who is willing to do this for the princess in this age when the world despises women. I am really excited. If I don't know that there is no result, I will fight for it. She didn't directly comfort, but directly pointed out Yin Beicheng's heart to Mo Shanghua. The flowers on the street were silent, until the South Crane came out quietly. When Yin Beicheng came in, he never came back. For a long time, she raised her eyes. In the quiet eyes of Gujing Prajna, there was a beautiful cheek with scarlet birthmark. The same kind of eyes that come into our eyes are those that smile and spoil. In the flower heart of the stranger, suddenly is soft, immediately what words all can't say. The cold color on the face gradually melts. Yin Beicheng resisted the joy in his heart, carefully took the flowers in his arms, and said in a low voice, "Emoer, I promise you that I will never make such a mistake again, and I won't swear to threaten you. Please forgive me for this." Well, flowers on the road should be a light. Head on his chest, the heart inexplicably quiet down. Yin Beicheng's lips are raised high and full of joy. For a long time, Emo Shanghua withdrew from his arms and looked up at him. "What are you going to let Nanhe do?" "That's not what I mean." Yin Beicheng gathered a smile on his face and said in a low voice, "It's Hua Qianlu. He made this request to me a few days ago. He asked Nanhe to help him do something, and I will do it." "What about Nanha? Is she willing?" Emo Flower Mao Guang a turn. Thoughts have returned to normal. Just forgot to ask. Now had to ask in North City. Naturally. Yin Beicheng's answer is also straightforward. Emo Shanghua nodded slightly, not noticing that everything was wrong. The look in her eyes suddenly brightened a little. "You've been busy recently, but I also have some things to do." Yin Beicheng raises his eyebrows and looks at the flowers with interest. The flowers on the street, however, pursed their lips and deliberately sold the pass. Before Ling Wang got married, Lin Xiangyin sent someone here again. Emo Shanghua didn't shirk this time and went to see her. Today's Lin Xiangyin is obviously a happy person. Her spirit is especially good, and her face is extremely ruddy. When she sees flowers in her street, she is more intimate than usual. Sister Emo Lin Xiangyin affectionately took the hand of Emo Shanghua with a smile on her face. "I'm going to get married in a few days. Today I'm here to send you a wedding invitation." Then he took a bright red wedding invitation from his maid and handed it to Emo Shanghua himself. He said with a smile, "I know my sister will come that day, but I still want to send it myself." Emo Shanghua accepted the wedding invitation, covered the complicated color in her eyes, and gave her a smile. "Congratulations." Lin Xiangyin's cheek turned red, but for a moment she suddenly turned her face and said, "Congratulations to Sister Emo too. I heard that His Highness King Yu has been highly valued by His Majesty recently, and her busy feet are always on the ground. However, the only bad thing is that the King Yu fought against Yin Moli everywhere, which made Yin Moli particularly embarrassed and even robbed him of several affairs." Emo Shanghua's quiet eyes flashed a touch of dark color and nodded quietly. "Well, I'm often in the inner house, and I'm not very clear." Lin Xiangyin retreated a little shyly on her face, and her tone was inexplicably sour. "His Royal Highness King Ling is the elder brother, but His Royal Highness King Yu doesn't deal with his elder brother everywhere, and it's not pleasant to hear." "What do you want to say?" he said. Lin Xiangyin did not expect Emo Shanghua to be so straightforward. She was a little embarrassed and said, "What is Emo's sister doing? I'm just a quick talker." If only that were the case. On the flower face of the street, there was a smile on her face, and she said, "If Miss Lin doesn't have anything to say, it's better to go back earlier. The women who are waiting to get married always show up in public, and they are not beautiful." Lin Xiangyin stood up in embarrassment and said, "My cousin is elder brother. If I marry my cousin in the future, you have to call me sister-in-law or Huang. How can you talk to me like this? Do you really think I'm a fool?" When the man is satisfied, he is easy to forget. The corner of the flower's lips on the street conjures up a radiant of ridicule and looks at her like a clown. Lin Xiangyin suddenly became more and more angry, and those careful thoughts in her heart burst out. "Why? Do you still want to fight me? Don't forget, even if I'm not a princess, my family is not what you can compare. I'm willing to soften my body and come to see you all the time. You should be more respectful. I'm always so indifferent to show you. Naturally, it's for you to see. If you don't like it, just don't see it." Emo Shanghua never loses anyone in the aspect of mouth. She coldly replies, "Don't give it away. the heart of the original soft, but also in this moment hard up. Lin Xiangyin was angry in her heart. She even took away the gifts she had brought. She glared at the flowers on the street and left with an angry face. In the heart, secretly plans. In the future became the marriage. Certainly must put on the imperial sister-in-law's prestige, teaches the stranger to spend some good lesson. Yin Moli, king of Ling, did a good job in investigating the case last time, and Baorong Emperor was still satisfied. Although the queen lost her power recently, the queen's mother's family is still in power, and he has not lost his sacred heart. Naturally, no one would dare to neglect her wedding. 10 Mile red makeup is just like that. There are no less dignitaries to go to, and Lin Xiangyin's voice is equally powerful. Dowry and other things are far better than ordinary ladies. Mo Shanghua and Yin Beicheng were also invited, and Liu Bohan, the right prime minister, naturally won't be ungrateful. However, a shocking and embarrassing scene soon appeared. Yin Moli drank too much wine during the reception. He should have been helped to the bridal chamber, but because it was early, he turned to the guest room to have a rest. It is this one into the guest room, unexpectedly, is to go to the wrong room, into the ladies' restroom. More coincidentally, Liu Qianqian, who was supposed to be forbidden in the prime minister's office, appeared here somehow. As soon as he saw Yin Moli coming in, he rushed in like a wolf, holding Yin Moli's thin waist tightly in both hands, and his eyes were full of crazy color. "Your Highness, I miss you so much." At that time, the faint fragrance of burning incense in the house came to his nose, and Yin Mo Li's mind, which was not very clear, was even more chaotic. In his confusion, he hugged her. Liu Qianqian, hard excited, almost trembling, will send their own red lips up. Just how can you be safe in the guest room? When both of them were half-dressed, a young woman who had not yet come out of the cabinet happened to see this scene and screamed, which attracted many women's families. The two men, who were confused and in love, did not respond very much. Nevertheless, no one dares to go in and disturb them. They only whisper among the women's family members, which soon spread to the male guests. For a moment, all the guests look different, but no one dares to make a public statement. Lin Xiangyin's elder brothers were also angry, but because of Yin Moli's identity, they were very angry, but they could only bear it. Liu Bohan heard of this kind of thing, but also cannot help but scold too. In the end, where is the woman, so shameless? Mo Shanghua has a meaningful glance at Liu Bohan. Then she takes her eyes back, turns to call Qinya, and whispers. Qinya Wenyin, some hesitant to see a flower on the street, and then still nodded, quietly retreated. After a while, Lin Xiangyin, who had been waiting for her husband in her new house, rushed out with a sad and angry face. Lin Xiangyin's brothers suddenly changed their faces. They quickly grabbed her and took turns to comfort her. "Sister, it's a family scandal. Don't make it public." "Sister, after today, you can do whatever you want to do with that little bitch. Don't be reckless." "Sister, please don't." Sister. Lin Xiangyin listened to every word. As soon as her red eyes were raised, her brothers were speechless. On the wedding day, the bridegroom spoils the woman in the guest room. I'm afraid no one can tolerate it. So, Lin Xiangyin threw the cover in the eyes of all the people, walked towards the guest room, and then ordered someone to knock open the door of the guest room. Many good people, regardless of face, follow behind, want to see the excitement. If you were someone else, you would have scattered the guests first. But Lin Xiangyin was angry and didn't notice this. She just looked at the scene in the guest room with anger and grief. At that time, Yin Moli had already fallen asleep on the collapse. His breath was steady, and he obviously had a good sleep. It was Liu Qianqian, who was only wearing a thin tunic. At the sight of so many people, Rao was prepared, and his face turned pale. "It's you." Lin Xiangyin looks at Liu Qianqian in shock. Liu Qianqian pulled the clothes to cover her body, and her eyes turned red in a moment. She didn't say anything, but cried silently, looking aggrieved. "Bitch!" Lin Xiangyin saw that she was using her usual tricks again. She was so angry that she rushed forward and slapped Lu Qianqian in the face. "Cunt! You are so shameless that you did such a thing on my wedding day. I'll kill you, I'll kill you." The people in the palace have been silly for a long time, and no one dares to stop them. Seeing this, Lin Xiangyin's brothers had to go forward and pull Lin Xiangyin back. One of the oldest brothers found Lu Bohan in the crowd. He held back his anger and said, "Lu Xiangxing's good daughter, please take your love away immediately. If not, I don't know what Princess Ling will do in her anger." Ling Princess, 3 words. He deliberately bite heavy word sound. Lu Bohan was ashamed of himself, and the comments of his colleagues and many women's families made his old face almost trample on the ground. Hold for a long time, he just pulled his side of the entourage to come over, squeeze out a few words from his teeth, take Miss back. The attendants looked at each other, but they didn't care about the difference between men and women. They rushed forward to take Lu Qianqian away. Lu Qianqian pulled his broadcoat and put it on. He didn't say anything. He just sobbed and went with him. Mo Shanghua has a complicated look at Lin Xiangyin, who is still in the house, wearing a bright red wedding dress but crying in great pain. She turns back quietly without saying a word. Qinya followed Mo Shanghua and comforted her. "This Miss Lin is not a good stubble. She's also a bridge wrecker. You don't have to worry about it." Mo Shanghua raised her hand and pressed her temple. She closed her eyes and said nothing. 2 days before Yin Mo's wedding, Mo Shanghua went to find Lu Qianqian. She has never been a soft-hearted person. Lin Xiangyin has no friendship with her, and she is not familiar with her. She was unhappy about the past few days, so she would not let go of her long-term plan because of her slight unhappiness. Since Lu Qianqian was banned, Lu Bohan quickly arranged a marriage for her. She was only the second son of a servant of the third-grade household department, and she was married lowly. If Lu Qianqian had not been schemed by the stranger and ruined his reputation, he would not have fallen on the second son of the house servant. Unfortunately, Lu Qian was not content. Seeing that Yin Moli's marriage is approaching, she is still unwilling to continue to be Yin Moli's chess piece, because in this way, she will never have the chance to be the person beside him. But, again as unwilling, she also has no way. She was not surprised by the arrival of Mo Shanghua. On the one hand, she was secretly vigilant. On the other hand, she tore off her disguise and said in a cold voice, "I thought you would come to see my joke early, but I didn't expect to come so late." The stranger took no time to find a place to sit down in her boudoir, or the former owner's boudoir, and passed the familiar desk lightly. This is the only thing in the boudoir that hasn't been renewed. For a long time, she raised her eyes, and a hint of sarcasm spilled from the corner of her lips. "Miss Xiangfu, are you still happy?" It's ironic to think that a father who seems to love himself but will betray himself at any time when he arrives. A father who promises the future but can abandon his master without hesitation. This kind of life is quite different from Lu Qianqian's imagination. At the beginning, his mind was stimulated by the flashiness in front of him, and now is completely cool. Good or bad, you can't live with it any longer. Rao is so, Lu Qianqian, or bite teeth, half refuse to admit. The ruddy lip petals of the flowers on the street are gently raised, and the ironic Lu Qianqian's face is almost distorted. "I'm not here to fight with you. I'm here to show you a way." "What do you mean?" Mo Shanghua took out a porcelain vase and put it on the table. She opened it with her red lips. "This thing can achieve your wish, but if you use it, what you have worked hard for many years will vanish overnight. It's up to you to choose. Finish saying, then directly get up to leave, nod and left, and write Lu Qianqian's idea." The unremarkable porcelain vase is quietly placed on the table. A small note is pasted on the bottle, which reads "Lost Feeling." Lu Qianqian's eyes fell tightly on the small characters of the bottle, and her eyes became obsessed, almost crazy. On his wedding day, he got mixed up with other women and was seen by so many people. Naturally, it spread to Emperor Baorong very quickly. Yin Moli, who used to have a sacred heart, was reprimanded by Emperor Baorong after the incident. and some of the things in his hands were directly taken away and handed over to others. Although not in the hands of Yin Beicheng, but for him is also a great blow. As for Lu Qianqian, after all, she was the prime minister's daughter, and she was very clever to attribute it to Yin Moli's impoliteness after drinking. She really couldn't resist. In this way, Lu Bohan had no choice but to go to Baorong Emperor for mercy. Naturally, Emperor Baorong granted Lu Qianqian to Yin Moli as a side imperial concubine. However, Lu Qianqian's position in his mind also plummeted from a gentle and polite, talented woman, a good daughter, to a disgrace. Moreover, Yin Moli was even more angry and depressed in his heart, but he still had no choice but to listen to Emperor Baorong and take Lu Qianqian in. Na side imperial concubine also wants to set up a few tables banquet. Therefore, on this day, she invited some powerful friends. The most Shanghua couple in Yinbei City, who disgusted Yin Moli the most, were invited to leave as their younger brother's wife. I thought Yin Moli would at least go through the stage and entertain the guests, but I didn't think that he didn't pass by from beginning to end. So is Yinbei City. Mo Shanghua looks up at Lin Xiangyin, who has just been married, and at Lu Qianqian, who is standing on one side and slightly embarrassed. At that time, Lin Xiangyin's face had no smile on the eve of her wedding, and she sat in the first place with a stiff face. The ladies around her complimented and congratulated her with different meanings, and she just had a response. In addition, she is more like a general intention, wearing a red dress. Steady will be next to the face of a jiao powder dress Lu Qianqian pressure. When Lu Qianqian used to be the legitimate daughter of the prime minister's family. Although she was gentle, she was always proud of her status, but now she was very obedient. A woman who used to hate Lu Qian couldn't help laughing. Why is Sister Lu standing all the time today? That's how I'm going to keep sitting. All of you are either the wife or the daughter of the family. Except for the servants, they're all sitting at the table with delicate snacks and tea. Lu Qianqian's lips moved. Before she could speak, Lin Xiangyin sneered and satirized. She's just a concubine now. How can she be qualified to sit with us? With that, she turned her head and put on the dignity of the imperial concubine. Lu Shi, where did you go in the past? Why are you so blind? You've been sitting for so long, and you don't know how to come forward to see me. Lu Qian's eyes flashed a touch of shame, but he still bit his teeth and tried to calm down. He said in a soft voice, "Yes." Then he went forward to worship Ing, the king of Ling's concubine Lu's side. "Give you a salute." Everyone looked different, but no one answered. If the squatting posture lasts for a long time, it is very easy to stand unsteadily. Lu Qianqian kept this posture for a while, then he couldn't stand. Seeing that no one answered, they were all joking with each other, and he simply stood up. She thought that Lin Xiangyin was mean and would not dare to embarrass her in front of others. Unexpectedly, she just thought about it in her head. Lin Xiangyin yelled with anger. "Who told you to get up? Lu, where have you learned your rules? Now kneel down for the princess." Everyone's eyes immediately fell on Lu Qian. Although Lu Qianqian hasn't been beaten, Lin Xiangyin's sentence has made her face hot and full of humiliation and grievance. Seeing that she didn't respond, Lin Xiangyin sneered. "If you don't kneel down, you're disrespectful to your mother. There's no rules. I'll report it back to the Lord to see how he will deal with you." Lu Qianqian red eyes, raised his head. This is still showing the cheek with fingerprints. Tears filled his eyes. Such a pathetic appearance is really a pity for the personality. It's a pity that all the women present are women, and no one is going to eat her. Lu Qianqian finally knelt down. She is very clear. Lin Xiangyin is disgusted with her this appearance. She must point to the end. Mo Shanghua's face light, after watching this farce, suddenly got up and went out. Qin Yabin's heart is refreshing, but he didn't expect that the flower party in the street suddenly got up and quickly followed up. Before 2 steps, Lu Qianqian, who had been kneeling on the ground honestly, suddenly raised her hand and grasped her skirt. Tearful eyes whirled. "Sister, I know you hate me, but why do you want to hurt me so much? You can see my present tragedy. I beg you to let me go and help me beg the princess to get around me." That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel, We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.